gonna spread love or hate? Are you gonna spread love or hate? Are you gonna spread love or hate?
I love you, oh loves. Do you have thoughts? Do you wanna share them with me? I love you, oh loves. Oh, do you have thoughts? I'd like to share mine with you. Can we share like lovers do? Underneath the painted blue moon, oh loves, do you have thoughts? And do you wanna share with me? Share with me too.
Ambient noise, yeah?
So now you grabbing some band lab clips.
Talking shit with blending. Da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm a fool for you, 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 you. Da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm a fool for you, 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 you. Since I was a little girl, I only knew
ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some band lab clips.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out. Kind of.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.
Oh, see what happens when Ange is pushing the buttons?
How did that happen? Oh.
Yes, Ange, you beat me because you pushed the button.
It happens. And how about one of these? There we go. That's what I like.
And this is our theme for tonight.
Yep. There it is.
I actually got the idea because BandLab yesterday put up a post talking about ways to, asking people if they had a lot of half-done songs and what causes
and a lot of people do.
half-done songs.
Yep. A lot of different reasons. To me, at least, a lot of different reasons. But I do have a lot of half-done songs. In a lot of cases, there were covers that I started doing and then just, got like part of it done, got like half of a bass track done or half of a guitar track done, and then kind of put it on a shelf because it was not a priority to put it out there. But for original songs, that's the real question. Leaving that kind of stuff half done is you should really push those through.
Yeah, if it's a cover, then it's just like getting through the part. And usually if you're not happy with what you've done so far, then it's like, oh, do I want to like do the other half? Because you feel like you want to start over again. But when you're writing, hitting those walls when you're writing is a big challenge.
Yep. And that's the other thing is if you were doing it again with the cover scenario, if you do put it up on the shelf and just leave it there, and then 3 months later you come back and you listen to it, you might have progressed a lot instrumentally and in your production work in those 3 months. So you listen back to it and you go, man, that sounds like crap, but I could do better than that right now. And you just sit down and you do way better than that right now. And then, and then maybe that'll push you further. Otherwise, put it back on the shelf and then 3 months later, revisit it again and say, oh, now I can add a bass part, can work in like stages like that.
At this point, I'm going back to projects that I already did and finished and redoing them again just because of like everything we've been learning, this year.
Exactly. And that's awesome too.
Mix number 3.
Yep. Number 3, version 3, V3.
Well, now it's with extra music. I got the stems in there, so
yeah. I love
new
the
and
stems.
improved.
Love the stems because then I can individually listen to different parts and even just mute different parts. If I want to play the guitar part, I can just listen to it as really listen to it and focus on that one way through, and then mute that track on the next way through and try to play that part in myself and see how much of a difference there is, because there's a difference.
Yeah, and what I've been suggesting to some singers is to actually mute as much as possible and just play the like track that helps them get through. And I find that some singers sing better when they don't have all the excess noise going on and they're just focused on the piano track or the guitar track, and it helps them to get their emotion out more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
anything
then you
that
can
helps get that all together, anything that helps the performance is definitely a good thing.
Yeah, and then you can turn those tracks on afterwards and listen to them along with your voice.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I love the guide tracks that you have in there, because you can sit there and it kind of gives you where the melody line goes, so that the timing of where to what the melody line should be doing and the timing of how to get the words in, and then you can mute that part out and go from there.
Yeah, you can see at least where the melody starts. 'Cause
Mhm.
timing, some need to practice their timing.
Absolutely. A lot of people do. That's another reason why it's good to start with a bass. Like you start on bass, you're working on timing already, and timing is just kind of in what you do, so that if you then move from bass to other instruments, you're bringing that with you. You know, your timing from bass applies to guitar, and you'll hear it in the guitar playing of a bass player.
Yeah, yeah. Usually when I'm working on somebody else's track and adding stuff, bass. The last project I was doing with Snave, it was the
Mhm.
bass track and the drum track. I had to turn everything else off just to center what I was
Mhm.
going to do.
Yep. And then you build around that, and then maybe when you turn the other layers back on, there are some things that clash with whatever is now all coming together. You know, it's all about what things need to still be in there and which things are, extras that need to be re-examined, let's say.
Yeah. And I did run through some of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight
Mhm.
as I was trying to come up with the keyboard parts.
Yep.
Because it's not just lyricists that writer's block affects every type of matter of fact, the first couple of videos isn't just going to talk about writer's block. What I found as I was searching for this, the term that they use is creative block,
Yeah, yeah.
and it applies to authors, it applies
Hmm.
to artists, visual artists, musical artists. Um, you'll you'll notice a couple of these aren't necessarily talking just about songwriting. Specifically, this
Hmm.
first one. This first one is actually towards the authors, but
Right.
Ange is constantly saying, musicians, we're storytellers, and the things she's going to talk about and the suggestions she gives to authors who are dealing with writer's block apply just as much to songwriters. And in some cases,
Mhm.
the suggestions could really help you when you're working on a song trying to tell the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that one
And
comes.
creative block, that is a better name for it.
Yeah, it made sense as I was searching. It helped me to narrow in a little bit more on the different things I was looking for because I was trying to see it from different perspectives. The lyricist and singers have different obstacles than the instrumentalists. And Reedsy, she's an author, and starting with her, she talks about like the three types. She really goes into like what is writer's block and the
Hmm.
types of writer's block you might have.
Nice.
And this was another one that I thought was good to start with because it comes from the personal level. Annie Dang talks about like how she took a break from songwriting and like almost went a year where she got stuck in a block, and she goes into like how she approached it. And one thing you'll notice with a lot of these when I was searching, um, there's a lot of videos out there about how to overcome it, but it was tough to find some that talk about how to prevent it, how to avoid it.
Hmm. Makes sense.
And this was a new channel that I came across that I really like because it's all about creators and create better. I mean, the title for the channel is fitting because he talks about it from like video production, music production as well, and making content in general, which nowadays that's what we do.
Yep. And I love his background. I know you do too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was sold on that. I was like, "Oh, he's a comic lover."
Mhm.
Oh, and Nicola, this one has three great techniques on how to avoid, and that's as I was going through it, that's what I really wanted to find some tips on. So she hits the hammer on the head with things to do to avoid getting into that stuck situation. You're going to hear a lot of talk about like motivation, and and striving for perfection, these kinds of things that tend to cause the writer's block.
Hmm.
And then Music by Maddie, one that we came across, I think, a few months ago with one of our other topics. And he's looking at it more from exercising, which
Hmm.
is same as avoiding like your creative muscle. If you do some of these things he suggests, that's another way of avoiding getting those obstacles. Oh, and Sensei.
The sensei.
I told you I would get him in anytime he fit the topic, and that's what I love about his channel. Because like we went there for the guitar, but we stayed
Yep.
because I mean he covers songwriting and music theory and everything else on top of it. He's just a well-rounded channel with information for all types of musicians, and
Excellent stuff.
he's gonna show how to conquer it.
Mhm. Yep. Nice.
Oh, and even the big guys will have writer's block and crafty music tips. Another cool channel that, like, loving the library over there. He's going to talk about how, like, John Lennon kind of dealt with it with one of his songs, where the way that he got around it, very creative approach.
Hmm.
And it goes to show you, like, even the music legends deal with it. This is something every creative person out there will deal with in
Yeah,
making things.
most definitely.
Yep. And then Curtis King TV, loving this channel too. He's one who's built up a nice community. He's got a lot of good information, and you join this community, you will have musical friends. Curtis King
Hmm.
TV going to give you a cure for music producers for beat blocks. Because beat makers too
Hmm.
probably run into this more than some of the other creative types out there, because eventually your beats start to sound the same.
Right. This one sounds too much like this, and then you tweak it. Oh, now it sounds too much like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to mention that. Oh, in the
Hmm.
Roan Zone, another freshie, songwriting, music production tutorials. I love those channels.
Oh
and
yeah.
and for this one, it's for the lyricists.
Hmm.
The one that's probably the most common when it comes to like getting the words out, the words you want to say, the words that fit with the music. He's gonna cover on how to write lyrics, and this is a whole segment that he has. But this one starts part one with writer's block.
Right. Right. On point for tonight.
Yeah. And to go from the lyricism with rap songs, and again, one that's probably very common on the lab. You got a lot of freestylers and rappers who, I don't, whether they get into a writer's block or they get into a comfort zone where they don't change their style, they just
Hmm.
continuously keep doing the same thing, and that is a form of writer's block.
Right.
And this is
Falling into a rut or yeah,
yeah,
repetition.
this is a channel that we have gone to before, because it's called How to Rap. And we have gone here.
Mhm. Eat.
And to finish it off, I almost picked a couple of videos from Joy here, because one of the things they're going to talk about is, like, the lack of an idea. uh, that's one big cause for sometimes why you hit the wall on what you're trying to do. And I ended up going with this one versus the other video. She actually made the second video after this one, because one of her last suggestions was write about yourself. And that's just one of the suggestions she's going to give in this one. But For here, she's going to give you 50 song ideas that you could write about. Like if you're not feeling an idea and you're wondering like what can I write about, she's going to blast out 50 good suggestions. And
Nice. Pick one out of the hat and then start from there. Yeah.
well, and she started with love and sex, which fits like so many songs.
Yeah. For songwriting, absolutely. It's right in there.
Yeah, so she got my attention.
Nice. Very cool.
So to get started, we're going to look at what types of writer's block there are. And there's probably more than 3, especially when you're talking different types of artists. But when it comes to like authors, she's broken it down to 3 types of writer's block that you'll come across in your writing career. And she's at Reedsy on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And this channel's more focused on the authors. But again, for you songwriters out there, especially the ones who want to be storytellers in their songs, you should check out channels like this. Being an author, you are that when you're writing a story in a song.
Yeah, and technically, I mean, you're always writing a story in a song, whether it's a true story or a fictitious story, but it's always a story of some kind. But to me, I really am a fan of story songs where there's, a central character or central theme that's, developed, or, you can follow a story arc, and, there's definitely feeling the ups and downs throughout a song instead of a song where it's just like me monotone the whole way through. I like something where there's ups and downs and speed changes, all that kind of stuff.
Well, just like you want dynamics in the music, you want dynamics in your story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So let's dive in. 3 types of writer's block and how to combat them.
How to combat them.
Hey everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy. Today we're going to be talking about writer's block. So we did do a video on writer's block a really long time ago. It was actually the first video that I ever made on this channel. But today, instead of just talking about what writer's block is and how to combat it, we're going to be talking about the specific types of writer's block and how to combat the different types of writer's block. There are different types of writer's block. You will probably relate to all of these. I know I do. And different types of writer's block require different strategies in order to combat them. So the first type of writer's block is not having an idea. This is the type of writer's block we usually see on screen. If there is a movie about a writer, 9 out of 10 times they're dealing with this type of writer's block where they don't have an idea. They open their Word document, they type a word, they delete it. They type another, they delete it. They stare at the computer for hours. Later on they're talking to their friends or their family member or I don't know, someone, and that person is like, how's writing going? And the main character is like, I just don't have an idea. And the side character's like, it'll come to you one day, my friend. And then eventually something happens and they get an idea and they write a book based off the plot of the movie. You're familiar with this in movies. It's basically just when a writer simply doesn't have any ideas. I would argue that in real life, it's probably the rarest form of writer's block. Most of the time, most writers will have an idea, and that the writer's block doesn't come in from not having an idea, but it certainly still happens. And it is a scary type of writer's block. Not having an idea can be kind of scary because you want to write, but you don't know when the idea will come, and it can be scary to worry that it never will. So here are a few ways to combat this specific type of writer's block. First is just patience. An idea will probably come to you eventually, and oftentimes when you least expect it, often when you're not trying to get an idea. I had a writing professor who used to say, if you're patient, the world will gift you ideas, and I think that's very true. If you are just going about your life, living your life, the world will gift you ideas at some point or another. Sometimes you have to be patient in waiting for them, but sometimes you don't want to be patient. So one way to get past this is to try to consume a lot of media, specifically a lot of stories. Usually consuming other people's stories, whether that's books, TV shows, movies, books definitely recommended. I would usually recommend the style that you want to be writing, but sometimes movies or TV shows can be great because that audio visual input is really helpful. I took a few classes where we would watch a movie like once a week. And I noticed that when I was watching a movie once a week, every week, I would get a lot more ideas because of that range of different visual input. So consuming a lot of stories is a great way to get the wheels spinning. And finally, you can try revisiting an old project. Sometimes a new idea isn't coming to you and you don't have a new idea, but the key might actually be to go back to look at an old idea. You might not need a new idea, there might be something old that you can rework and kind of find new life in. The next type of writer's block is when your project is stuck. This is probably the most common type of writer's block and probably one that you're pretty familiar with. Basically, you have an idea, you know what you want to write, you don't know how to write it. This can happen at the beginning of a project where you don't know how to start the project. It can happen in the middle of a project. You hit a wall and you don't know how to get past this roadblock. It's pretty unavoidable. It's going to happen at some point or another. I think it's hard to write an entire manuscript without having this happen at least one time. So how to combat it? I've got 4 strategies for this one, and the first one is to just skip over the difficult part. Whether the difficult part is the beginning or whether it's a difficult part in the middle, if you're really stuck at one point in your manuscript, just skip over it. If there's a scene that you don't know how to write and you don't know how to approach it, come back to it later. Instead of stalling and stalling and stalling, just skip over it to the next part. That will be easier to write. You can always come back to it later and it will probably be easier later. The next strategy is to go back a few steps. A lot of the time if you hit a wall, it's because you made the wrong turn a couple chapters ago. So go back a couple scenes, probably 2 or 3 scenes, and you'll probably find the crossroad where you took the wrong turn. So if you're having a problem with a certain scene, the problem is actually probably a few scenes back. It's probably not with the scene you're writing. You might have to go back and cut a few scenes in order to get on track again. Number 3 is to challenge yourself to write it as simply as possible. This is one of my favorite strategies when I don't know how to write something. If you're struggling with how to word a scene or how to connect certain plot points, whatever the issue is, instead of trying to write it well, just try to write it. Try to write it simply. I sometimes challenge myself and I say, just write it as simply as you possibly can. Even if it ends up being really brief and really poor writing, it gives you something that you can come back to later. This is similar to the first strategy. Just instead of skipping over it entirely, you're laying down a really simplified blueprint so that you can come back later and build from it. This works for me almost without fail. Every time I'm stuck and I do this and I tell myself to just write it as simply as possible, I probably get on a roll and start writing normally, like within 500 words. It's kind of magic. And the final tip is to just write something else. Sometimes you're stuck with a project, but it doesn't mean you have to be stuck with writing entirely. So try writing something else that can help you gain some momentum, maybe the momentum you need to tackle this writer's block in your other project. And the final type of writer's block is not having any motivation. This is also one I think everyone will face at a certain point. This is when you know what to write, you have the idea, you could write it, but you just don't have the motivation to approach it. So the first way to combat this is to find the root of the problem. This is really important. You kind of have to find the reason why you're demotivated in order to help yourself move past it. You know, if you're dealing with something like creative burnout, or even if it's an unrelated personal problem that's making it hard to write, that's the thing that you're going to have to tackle in order to find the motivation to keep writing. If the problem is something like perfectionism or pressure or a fear of it being bad or a fear of being judged, exercises like free writing can be really useful. And finally, try to write at a regular but low output. So create a schedule where you have a very low goal, but it's regular and consistent. If you try to get out of a writing slump by challenging yourself to write at a really high output, you probably won't have the motivation to even try. But if you set your word count goal really low, say you set a schedule of writing every other day and writing 50 words. This is so manageable that it doesn't take a lot of energy to just get up and do it. You know, you can write 50 words, that's like 2 sentences. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but the goal is just to get you on a regular writing habit. Usually, if you're able to write 50 words, you'll probably be able to write 500 words. It's more just about getting yourself to open the draft and actually look at it on any given day. That's what you're trying to motivate yourself to do, rather than trying to motivate yourself to, you know, create at a really high output. So try to create a regular, consistent schedule with a really low goal, so it's really easy to reach and it's really easy to maintain. Maintaining that regularity can help you get back into writing and help you get over this period of low motivation. So that is how to deal with the different types of writer's block. Which type of writer's block do you deal with the most often? For me, it's definitely the project getting stuck. And what do you find most helpful when dealing with the writer's block that you face? Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing tips every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time. Bye.
Oh, great tips.
Definitely. Yeah. I love the idea of like, the small goal, like the small word count goal in that case. I love that idea also for instrument practice, like just doing at least 5 minutes every day. Just pick it up, go through, even if it's the same thing, just to get your fingers doing something and get it into your hands, because maybe it'll inspire you to, start into a new song or whatever. But same idea of just taking that first step, because if you can get yourself to take that first step, then most of the time you'll be able to follow through with even more than that.
Yeah. And, for lyricists and word writers in songs, a lot of times you've got to condense your story. The biggest challenge is, how do you tell a story you could write in a book in so many lines in a song and still say the same story?
Yep.
That kind of
Exactly.
exercise helps you to condense your thoughts and narrow in on exactly what you're trying to say.
Mhm. Now, one of my favorite ideas for trying to shift out of a writer's block or trying to get past a wall in a particular song is to shift perspective and think about the situation. Like if you've been telling the story from the perspective of the guy and the girl or whatever, shift it around and think about the story from the girl's perspective and think you can see something from there, or whatever, whatever the perspective is, whether it's a story about a truck or a story about whoever, you can just shift the perspective and look at it from a different angle and try to
Look,
get an idea for how to proceed from there.
that's why it's so awesome to write duets,
Mhm.
because the duet kind
Yeah,
of
exactly.
forces you to start looking at it from different singers' perspectives.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and looking at her breakdown on these three types, the not having an idea is always a wall, but with music, it's even trickier sometimes, because having an idea that matches musically to what you're trying to do, sometimes you might have some music and you have this idea, and trying to get them to mesh can be a challenge.
For this one, that was when I typed in the all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, because that's the no idea writer's block, because he was motivated, but he had no idea.
You went shining on us, huh?
Well, I mean, it's a good example, right? I mean, it's that's what was going on there at the beginning.
And her second example, the Stuck project, and she mentioned that, like, that's the one she struggles with the most. Same here.
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
overall, like, this is where the half songs end up happening,
Yep.
where you start off strong, the ideas flowing, and you're like, this is going to be the next big hit, and all of a sudden you get stuck. And how to get unstuck, we're going to be covering tonight. Like, a
Oh yeah.
lot of different suggestions you're going to see over these next videos
Mhm.
on the unstuck process. I really like that she mentioned, for scene writers and sometimes authors, going back in your scenes or your
Yep.
chapters, the same situation. If you're dealing with an arrangement or a mix,
Mhm.
sometimes you over arrange, you over mix, and all of a sudden everything starts to sound clustered and muddy, and you've got to step back to that point where
Mhm.
that began to happen.
Otherwise, you're trying to fix it with a little more of this or a little more of that, and all you're doing is making it worse and worse. Where if you took a few steps back, you could say, "Oh, back here things were good, except for I have to do this and this, but do it differently this time."
Yeah, if you feel like it's gotten out of control, it's better to step back in those situations than to try to put the lipstick on the pig.
Yeah, and again, simplifying, that's another key right there. Maybe there's one layer too many. Maybe you didn't need that one extra flute layer in the middle there. You can see how it sounds without it, and maybe add something different.
Yeah, or in the case of, like, character writing,
Mhm.
maybe there's more character or development that's just getting in the way of what you're trying to say.
Mhm. Yeah, And again, you can always jump the story somewhere, to a different point. Somebody remembers something from, somewhere else. There's lots of different mechanisms you can use to try to, jump to a different point in the story to develop a little bit more about a different aspect of a character and then jump back in.
Yeah, and that's where changing perspective, sometimes it helps, sometimes it's like, oh, this is getting confusing.
Yeah. Or
Where am I?
jarring. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's like, I
then
was just getting to like that guy. And where'd he go?
yeah, and the last one, no motivation. That's one that, on any given day, we can all feel that.
Absolutely.
You felt the song the night before, and then you get up and like, I'm not feeling it anymore. Like I have love songs that I started writing that the emotion went away, and I'm still halfway done with the song, and it's like, I got to get this emotion back in order to finish the song.
Nice. There was a video I watched at one point about inventions, and it was somebody who her idea was that, instead of getting stuck and not having an idea for an invention, just make bad inventions, like, intentionally silly or just the first thing that comes to mind or whatever. Like, no matter how ridiculous it sounds, just to make it, just to do something. And then, by doing that, you'll learn something, and then you can apply something to something else. And while you're making that thing, even if it's a ridiculous thing, it'll allow your brain to work out what you were already, kind of working on, which was the other problem from before. And now all of a sudden you come up with solutions while you're doing something else. I like that kind of thing too.
Yeah, and that's why I like in her suggestions on dealing with that, and especially perfectionists out there, is like, just try doing it simple. Try you don't necessarily have to write the great song or the novel in one shot. Create that foundation, and then you can start to re-edit it and build it, perfect it over time. Perfectionism is something that like really can get in the way of writer's block.
Absolutely. Most definitely. And that's where, again, just getting things down on paper. And even if you're not going to use, 95% of it, if there's just little nuggets here and there that survive and inspire, the rest of a story, that can really help.
Yeah, if there's enough there for you to maintain the idea and not lose it, I mean, that's the most important thing, is to, when a great idea does come to you, find a way to get it down enough so that you can get back to it when you need to.
Exactly. And that was my big thing about recording everything at rehearsals, is just to, have it something running in the background all the time, rather than otherwise it would be like we wanted to record something at a rehearsal. So it would be, okay, get the recorder ready. Okay, now everybody get ready. Okay, now here we go. Ready. Okay. Shh. And go. And then somebody's going to make a mistake in the first 3 bars, and then it's going to have to do the whole thing over again. And just people are going to get mad. And it's not going to work out. So just keep something running and just run through the song a couple times. And even if it is, you got 3 bars in and messed it up, like, oh, keep going, just run it around, vamp it a couple times, and then go from there. Because then now you're wound into it, people are loosened up, relaxed, and now you just go. And it comes out really well. And we could always, clip something together at the beginning to get that fixed if we needed to make it still sound cohesive and a solid run through the structure, for example.
Yep. Yeah,
it's important to get something down.
Let's not forget her best tip, I think she gave in there. When you're in these kind of situations, consumption. Go and consume the media that you're trying to do, as much of it as you can. That's why I do all my covers. Like the last 3 years, going through so many songs, learning different styles and different instruments.
And even just
really
a little phrase
helps.
Just a little phrase here and there, even like oh, I really like this phrase from this song, the little hook or whatever. And then you realize, oh, that's, the major third, fourth to the root. Oh, and then you realize and you build that into your repertoire. You use that here and there in other songs. And all of a sudden it's like, ooh, now I can use that here and I can use that there. And you're just adding that stuff to your vocabulary is what I would say.
Yeah. And if you're consuming like that, like she said, life will gift you with the ideas.
Oh yeah. And that's where things like doing like the James Brown funky instrumentals for me, like doing a warm up for that for bass. It's like, it's not specifically about learning that song or whatever. It's just throwing on a really, something with a really good groove to it and just grooving along with the bass, just to get the fingers working, go through something. And then, from there, I just kind of sprout off and do other things like, okay, but that got me started. It was like, priming the pump, getting you ready to go and getting things wound up and started.
So that was at Reedsy.
Yep.
Whether you're a novelist or a songwriter, this is a channel that will help you to smooth out your story making.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Yeah, really glad I got to explore other types of channels and approaches to this, because I didn't want to just focus on songwriting. Creative block, which is what we're going to get into next, is something that happens to all types of artists.
Definitely. It's something that they all wish to avoid.
Yeah, this one is Annie Dang, and she's got her music on this channel. She's got tips on writing, art. I mean, she's a creative beast, and she's at Annie Dang over on YouTube. And this one's a little more like personal. It's her journey into creative block, and how she recognized it, dealt with it, and overcame it.
Very cool.
And if you have a creative block, this is for you.
This is for you. Here we go.
I'm in a slump, or I guess what I mean to say is I haven't written a song in over a year now. Songwriting used to be like play to me, like it was what I gravitated towards during my highest and my lowest. And for a while, I really gravitated towards that identity, but then all of a sudden it just sort of stopped. I don't really know what happened specifically, like I guess life just happened and now here I am.
Writing nowadays feels like going on a run when you're out of shape. Of course, all I gotta do is get back into it and it'll get easier, but the resistance is tough.
Alright, so they say the hardest part in any process is getting started, so what I'm gonna try to do today is sit down and try to write something. I have the handy dandiest of instruments to use and choose from, so I'm just gonna pick one and get started, I guess. I'm gonna get a voice memo running and see what I can come up with. It's as if I forgot how to play guitar.
See, before, songwriting didn't feel forced. Ideas just came to me whenever and wherever. Maybe it's just me getting older and being more aware, but I'm a lot more judgmental over my work nowadays. It didn't feel like I had anything or anyone to compare to then, but being around more creative songwriters and artists really make you question your own skills and abilities sometimes.
Why can't I write anything? I don't know if you guys can see this, but I wrote down the date and the sentence, why can't I write anything? I actually can't come up with anything right now, even though I have so much on my mind. Like, I don't know what's up. There goes that page.
Now, that little writing session might have been a complete fail, so I went online to see what the most famous writers had to say.
You're on a good streak, you're writing good songs now, and then you're going to write a shit song, and that song is out of you and you can move on.
And as soon as you're done with the A+ song, you once again know nothing about it. I've been trying all week. Do you know how many songs I've gone through and ditched? Maybe 8.
You don't have writer's block and it's just flows and you're really inspired, but lots of time it's like work. Other days I'm like, oh my god, this is so bad. I don't know why anyone is listening to this. I can't do this. And I think that's just part of like being an artist and making art that's like really personal and vulnerable. I think that's just part of it.
I think the main culprits that have been eating away at my songwriting this year have been definitely comparison and a big case of imposter syndrome. Like, I'm sure a lot of artists feel that way. It's one thing to compare yourself to others, but it's like a whole nother thing to compare yourself to your own past work. Like 100% of the time I look back at my old work and I just cringe. And I know that this is gonna sound toxic, but sometimes I have this do it perfect or don't do it at all mentality, which ruins like everything I do. And 9 out of 10 times, I think the things that I write suck, so I end up not finishing anything that I do at all. And I know that with every creative process, it's all about just accepting where you are with your journey, with your skills, and doing what you can with what you have, and also accepting that this feeling is never gonna go away. And it's all about just how we perceive it and also what we decide to do with it.
When I'm creating alone for a while, I sometimes forget that even the people around me feel this way too. So I decided to take a trip to my good friend, Megan.
I think it's just like placement, like because mine is on my collar and yours is down there.
Right. Maybe like
this.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Don't forget to drink when you cheers because that's bad luck.
Really?
If you don't drink after you cheers.
Okay. Cheers.
Yum.
Okay, so this is my friend Megan. We've met through music, and you're a fellow songwriter as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been writing?
I want to say I've been writing for over like 10 years, 12 years.
Wow. So within those 10 to 12 years, have you encountered like any sort of trouble when it comes to writing?
Yes.
Or has it always been easy for you?
There's always like a time when you run into the struggles of like you can't figure out what to write. I will go through periods of starting to write something and then feeling like it's not completed because I can't write the rest of it. I don't know why, and then I beat myself up about it and I'm like, why can't I just get this feeling out? I feel like before when I was younger it was just like free for all, do whatever, which it kind of should still be like that.
Yeah.
But now there's like this added pressure of because you are categorizing yourself into the bracket of you're an artist and singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
There's more pressure on you to like have these types of songs and have this type of way of writing or whatever. But the reality behind it is that you can write any way you want. There's really no right or wrong about the way that you write.
What advice would you have for an artist out there that's having some writer's block right now?
Take a break. Because you probably need it. Figure out what it is, where you're at in your headspace, what you need in that moment that might help you to be able to continue the rest of your art, whatever it is, whatever craft it is. And you'll definitely find re-inspiration when you take a break. I feel like it just like catches you at the most unexpected times. Don't force something that's not there.
Don't force something that's not there.
The words are gonna leave the frame because that's too long.
Is this like the right direction to point it in? Yes, it is. Well, thank you for having this conversation with me.
Of course!
I love talking to you about literally everything. You're the best. I love you.
I love you.
So I might or might not have just randomly decided to go on a little writing retreat. I've always thought that writing retreats were meant to be with people or like a group of people where you go out really far away to somewhere nice and write a bunch of songs, but today I'm just all by myself and I really want to make time for me to write, so I'm gonna bring my little guitar, find somewhere close by that's nice and just start writing. I think the point is that I want to make time for myself. And who knows, I mean, maybe I'll write something nice, but no expectations.
It's hard to see when your eyes look dull. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not
As I'm sitting there by the river, I've realized what a mind game this all is. What you tell yourself is what you end up believing, and what you believe is what you allow yourself to do. It's like that one quote from Gandhi: "If I believe I cannot do something, it makes me incapable of doing it." So for that brief moment out there when I let it all go, that negative self-talk, that comparison, it didn't matter how long I was away from writing or how I felt about it before. I just believed that I could, and so I did. So after watching this and you were able to take one thing, take away your limitations.
Excuse me. Sorry if that was really loud.
I'm keeping that.
We just ate Pokeballs.
I think I swallowed a bug. I swallowed a bug.
Now resolves. Quiet on set.
Come on, silly. Come on. Quiet down in the set. Okay.
Quiet on the set.
Well, you might have some competition there for the belching. Her friend has got Glenn level.
Yes. I am out of practice. Yes, I've not entered a competition in some time.
Well, I love her summation there. Take away your limitations. Recognize
absolutely.
them. Know like what is limiting you there, and find a way to get it out of the way. Her decision to go just like sit by the river and kind of soak up a moment. That's you'll see in some of the other suggestions in some of these videos, that's something that's going to be a reoccurring theme where take a break, go somewhere different, and
That's a life hack,
yeah,
really.
yeah. And
that's something that I mean, just when she says it, I'm thinking about several places that I know of that I pass by all the time, and it's like, there's a good spot to go write a song. Like there's a good spot to go write a song, and like she said, there, just do, believe that you can go do it, and then just go do it, and that's the way that works.
I wish I could just take my keyboard and go, sit outside. I got to get me one with batteries, and
I did see one that was travel friendly, portable, foldable. I want to say it was a full 88 keyboard, but like imagine the 88, take 40, and split it in half, right? So you got half and half, and then each half in half again. So you figure 22 keys, and then 22 keys, 22 keys, and each one folds in half like a V. So you have like a V, they fold together, and then these fold together, and then you can just kind of put them together and just go. So it's like a small cluster.
Take a look for that.
I'll find the video. It might be one of the ones that I have to still add to our queue over there for upcoming. But it was one of those for like a gear night when we do like a travel guitar, because that's one I've seen a couple of different videos for travel guitars that are small footprint, very compact. You can take them, pretty much anywhere. And now that was a foldable travel large keyboard that just folded down really small.
And I've got plenty of nature to go out and use it in.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the other thing is that even something like at one point with just the iPad and GarageBand, and this is going back a decade or whatever, but just with that, I was able to bring up, the smart piano, for example. And with that, you can set up some chords, set up the chords in a key, for example, right across. And then just if you wanted to go out and sit there and songwrite, you can just by tapping on there, you could really do, a lot of stuff with very little input, just using, just an iPad and just being able to hit a couple of buttons with some timing, and you can make a really awesome
it's
song.
good for phrasing, arrangement, things like that.
And to get an idea down and, capture, like you were saying, capture the moment, capture a feeling in that moment, like where, you find a really beautiful spot in nature, you sit down, you kind of absorb it in, and then you just, start playing something, and it just, whatever comes out was inspired by that moment. Even if the song that you're making doesn't relate to the moment, it was inspired by the moment.
Yeah. Isn't it funny that like as she was trying to get out of that rut, she started by like writing a song about why can't I write a song? And it's funny, she didn't realize she was actually starting to write a song about the struggle.
Exactly. And a lot of times if I do sit down with somebody who is trying to write a song or just trying to, we're just going to do a jam and just start, a lot of times it's good to just have a structure. Like I like to have, if we're going to do a 3-chord thing or a 4-chord thing or a 2-chord thing, or even a 1-chord thing. Like any of those are valid, but sometimes people, they'll start into a 3-chord thing, and instead of, just staying with that, they'll do that, 13 times and then just jump to somewhere random. And it's like, like were we going to talk about that? That was just, it's like, we can do that. But usually, like, I would usually do like, 4 of these or 8 of those, but not 13, because that's kind of, right in the middle of a verse or whatever. But, it is nice to, to bring it to somewhere different and then see what it sounds like, because then once you hit that, it's like, oh, wait, oh, yeah, it feels like it, somebody else might be like, oh, it feels like it should resolve here. And they jump to a different note. So, everybody kind of can contribute in a way like that if you're sitting around in a jam. But, that would be more of a thing at a rehearsal rather than like at a, on stage in front of people, like doing random stuff that is not put together yet.
Well, I really like this video because it came from personal side and I related completely with it. Like, she recognized that she went from music being fun, and like she said, it was play for me. And then all of a sudden, one day, it's no longer play. For those of you who might get into a professional career with music, when music becomes work, when you have to do it for your job, you may not feel the same way you did when you first picked up that instrument or you first made the music. And that can create that kind of writer's block where you start to have different expectations or time constraints. And she recognized that she was feeling different about music. And she did smart.
Indeed.
She went to a musical friend. That's one of the best ways to get out of these kinds of blocks, is go to other creative types out there and bounce off them. Sometimes that will get you right out of your rut.
Absolutely. And it's good to play with other people anyway, in terms of just working on your vocabulary, your communication, being able to just jump in with other musicians that you've never worked with before. That's definitely a fun skill to be able to do.
Yeah. At Annie Dang. Check her out.
Nice. Good one.
Yes. So now we're going to shift over to content creators. And, again, just like making a song, nowadays, you're more likely not just making a song, you're making a video, you've got a YouTube channel or, a stream that you're making content for, and content blocks. That can be just as tricky. We deal with that with our shows. Like, our shows have different themes and content, and you gotta be able to come up with fresh content.
Exactly. It's important. And that's where the creative block comes in, because if you get it blocked, it's a question of either not getting in the first place and understanding how to avoid it by doing certain things, or how to get out of it or to beat it once you have gotten there.
And the channel's aptly named. It's about, to create better. And he got it on YouTube at Create Better. Slick boy.
Very cool. Very
the
nice.
ultimate resource for content creators to improve their craft. And as you can see, lots of different videos on, how to be a better content creator.
Very cool.
So with this one,
and this one is,
it's escaping the creative block, and 5 mind-blowing techniques to supercharge your creativity.
All right.
Get you motivated.
With you guys, welcome back to Create Better with Nowsy Nows, the ultimate resource for content creators to help you guys improve your craft and create better content faster. Today's video is about finding inspiration and how to come up with creative video ideas, whether that be for your YouTube channel, your blog, your TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, whatever platform that you're creating for. This video is all about finding inspiration and just creative ways about how you can make that happen for yourself. As you can see on my channel here, I have well over 300 videos that I have posted. Now, some people come up to me all the time, and the question that I often get asked is, how have you been able to do this for so long and you keep coming up with fresh fresh ideas and content? Now that is a very valid question, and to some people that may be really hard. So I'm gonna give you guys 5 ways and 5 things that I do as well to help you brainstorm ideas and come up with just creative ways to make sure you just keep the wheel turning and you just never get burnt out. And a lot of these tips, I'm hoping that you guys use these to elevate your brainstorming process and just come up with all of these ideas, especially coming from somebody who's literally just filming and shooting every week, all week. Tip number 1 that I'm gonna give you guys is honestly, you just have to explore your interests. Exploring your interests is just one super simple way to just find a lot of video ideas for whatever you're interested in. You gotta sit down and really give time to thinking about what hobbies, passions, or specific topics that you find yourself going back to over and over again, and those things that you find yourself really wanting to learn about, also create content around that's also fun, and it's just something that you just are genuinely interested in. You want to take those things and then you want to literally write them down and use that list as a starting point for brainstorming ideas. So when I'm telling you to explore your interests, and I'm saying that from experience, because when you're just doing something that you're not interested in, you're gonna get burnt out way faster. You're gonna wake up and say, I don't feel like doing that today. You're gonna find every excuse to not create if you don't really truly enjoy it. So start with your interests and those things that you really find yourself passionate about, that you feel like you could go on for hours and hours and hours. Those are the things that you want to create content around. You don't want to just be the person that's just creating content around something that you really don't have any interest in, because ultimately you're going to end up hating that every day. You don't want to approach content creation this way because you will get burnt out very fast. And if this is something that you want to be doing as a full-time career, or this is something that you want to have longevity in, I would suggest you start with your interest as the very first thing, and then just start listing out those things that you feel very passionate about. Tip number 2 that I'm going to tell you guys to do is look for the trends. You want to make sure that you're staying up to date with all of the popular trends and the topics of conversation and whatever niche audience that you are creating for. Those things could either include current events, that can include viral challenges, that could also include emerging technologies, like if you're in the tech space. By tapping into what's popular, you're able to create content that resonates more with your audience and stay up to date with what's relevant within the culture of the content that you're creating. Oh, that was a tongue twister. But you definitely want to be adaptable and flexible to be able to move with the market and flow with the way things are going, because as we know, time moves forward. Like, new things are coming out every day. There's a new dance challenge every day on TikTok. There's a new app that's coming out every day. There's new cameras coming out every day. There's new features that Instagram or TikTok and new policies that YouTube and all of these platforms are incorporating into the system. So you want to be up to date and you want to be on top of all of these things and learning all of these things. That way you can find a way to implement them into your content, and it's just another thing to pull from that people may have questions about, that people may be interested in. Maybe they want to see you do that specific dance. Maybe they want to hear you break down this news story that's going on around the world. Maybe they want to hear you talk about this new technology that just came out. Maybe you have some insider detail that the average person may not know, because you came to your video well prepared, doing more research than the average person, and now you have something to give your audience. So this is why you want to stay up to date with all of those current trends and what's going on within that niche. Tip number 3 is I'm going to tell you guys to research your audience. So when you are creating content, you don't want to just create from a place of not knowing what's going on. And that doesn't mean that you're trying to go viral or anything like that, because that cannot be your goal. But you just want to be updated on what your audience is searching for so that you can provide content that resonates with them. You don't want to be putting all this time, all of this effort and money and all of these things into the content and it's just falling on deaf ears. So I'm going to tell you guys to research your audience, because understanding your audience is key to creating content that resonates with them. You want to look at what your audience is already engaging in, whether that be on your channel or other social media apps. You want to look at what they're liking, what they're commenting on, what they're sharing most of, and you want to research those things. You want to take notes of all of those things. Those things are going to give you more insight into what type of content that they're interested in, and that, hey, they might want to see more of that from you. So make sure that you properly research your audience. It's going to help you in the long run, I promise. Tip number 4 is I'm going to tell you to wait for it. Brainstorm. Once you go from step 1 to step 3, you're gonna have a really good starting point and a basis as to what to start brainstorming for and what kind of video ideas that you may want to start going into. Something that I do a lot personally, and what you may want to do, is you can either use like a mind map, which is basically just like a web that actually, I'll just put it up on the screen. This is a mind map. This is something that you could use on a day-to-day basis to organize your ideas for content that you feel resonates with your audience. Another thing that I use very often is lists. I use my notes app all day, and this is just nothing but ideas. So I'm constantly just writing down different ideas all day, whether they just be a random thought or something I just found funny or interesting, I write it down. That's the cool thing about using these lists and making these maps and using these different strategies, is because the thought doesn't have to be fully fleshed out. You don't have to know exactly how you're gonna go about doing it. It's just best to get it out your head and write it down somewhere. So as you're brainstorming, and please don't forget this because this is vital to this step, do not filter, do not judge your ideas in this stage. Please, please, please don't judge anything. Just let the ideas flow. I can't tell you how many ideas I've had that honestly, they're so bad and I just write them down anyways. Because you may feel like it's bad today, but then tomorrow it may not feel that way. Maybe next week it won't feel that way. It's just an in the moment thing, and you just really never want to stunt your creativity, and you just really want to let your thoughts just flow. You want to let these ideas just flow. This is the essence of being a creative. It's just letting your mind do whatever it wants to do and just creating from a free and pure standpoint. So like I said, start utilizing these lists and using these maps to get your thoughts out of your brain so you could at least see them. And then you will go to a flushing out process from there. Tip number 5, and the final tip that I'm going to give you guys, is to experiment and iterate. So whether you have done your brain map already, or you already have a long list of different ideas and different topics, different interests, you've done your research and you've done all of these things, you want to start experimenting with how these things might play out. You want to try out different formats, different styles, and different approaches to see what resonates with your audience the most. And then from there, you're going to use your analytics and feedback to iterate and improve on the content that you're creating over time. Something I tell people very, very, very often is that you're never going to just come out and just be the greatest. You have to learn over time. This is something that you're going to put years and years and years to, especially when you're looking to do this long term. It's okay if you come out and things are not perfect. It's okay if you come out and your sound is not where you want it to be. Your lighting doesn't look how you want it to be. You don't have the best camera quality. It's okay. You just want to start, and you want to take these approaches and start experimenting with things, and you want to just use that time to get better over time. Nothing is going to come out the gate and just be a 10. Even how you see this now, this setup took so long to just think about and actually visually plan out. And even with that being said, I still feel like I could take this setup to another level. What I would have to include, I got a few ideas, but we taking it slow. And that's the goal. Even if you go to my main channel and you literally scroll all the way back to my first videos, you'll see how bad my audio quality was. You'll see how bad the video quality was. I didn't care about color grading. I didn't care about a lot of things. And that's okay, because I was learning the fundamentals and the groundwork to get better. So that's my last tip, is just to experiment and iterate. Just try things and then use that feedback and improve over time. I hope that those 5 points prove valuable to you guys. I know they prove valuable to me, and these are things that I do literally every day, all throughout the week as I'm creating content, whether that be for this channel or my main channel. And I hope that these things help you find inspiration in coming up with video ideas and creating content that resonates with your audience. I love you guys. Thank you for stopping by. If you found anything valuable from this video, please make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure you guys subscribe, and make sure you guys hit that bell notification so that you can know next time I drop a video, man. Thank you guys for all the support that you're showing. Drop a comment. Let me know if I missed anything, if you got anything valuable out of this. Also, let me know if there's anything that you do differently than I do that may also help other creators. Drop that down below in the comments, because they might like your ideas also, and what you use to help brainstorm for your content. I'll see you guys next time, man, and I am out.
Searching YouTube so you don't have to.
Ah, you got it. That's a good one. Nilesy Niles. I like this channel. I like his setup too, like what he's gotten to. I would totally sit in that room.
Yeah. And we've talked about it before. Just the the way the algorithm is built up on the channel that we use to search for content for the show. It just feeds us channels like these that are new to us but have great stuff. So they got to be included in what we're doing.
Yeah, in the search terms, like every week when we're going through new themes and finding some new channels, and as they get incorporated in, our feed now is awesome. I get suggestions in every direction.
Yeah. And deep dives on any of them, because you dive in one direction and you're getting resources. It knows where to look to get us more information about that.
And what I like with this one is I feel better about myself, because I follow a lot of his tips and suggestions. I was like, this does apply to musicians just as much as content creators, because he started with the explore your interest. it's not to say you shouldn't try like other styles of music and things like that, because we encourage that. But at the same time, don't force yourself to do something that you're not into. Like if you do, you will hit writer's block, because it's not as it's not of your interest. So first embrace your interest before you get to step 5.
Yep.
And
Before you start
in the
hating.
middle there, he really covers like what you want to know about, like what's going on in music. What is the current trending music? You know, if you're writing in a genre that's currently not getting played as much, recognize that and know what is trending, what people are listening to, and then research your audience that you have to find a way to fit your interests into what might be trending. I mean, it all kind of complements each other there.
Yep. All fits
And
together.
once you've got all that, his brainstorm is what you want to do. Like, you know, start to actually like lay out different strategies, and going to write these kind of songs. Hey, I'm going to make an album that hopefully is fitting the trends out there. At this point, you're ready to.
Yep. Exactly. And a lot of people, they don't even, they make they have no consideration or no thought for the audience per se that they're trying to aim for. They just want to make the music that they want to make, and then the audience that it attracts is the audience that it attracts. So some people look at it as, they're making the music specifically for their audience. Others, they're just making their music, and it brings in the audience that it brings in based on.
Yeah, and there will always be those musicians who simply make it for themselves. I mean, I've primarily always written for myself. I want to hear this. That's why I make this.
Yep. Exactly.
But I take his tip 5, where you experiment and iterate, like that way.
Yeah,
I can get out of my boxes that I sometimes put myself in.
I mean that's science right there, and I love that. So
there is a little science in some of these. They will be mentioning a little more science later.
I'll get my lab coat. It's over there somewhere.
We're getting into the science of creative block. So at Create Better, for all you content creators out there, a worthy channel to help you to create better. Could not have picked a better name. Nilesy Niles.
Very cool.
Yeah. A nice new find. As this one too, Nicola. What she talks about here and what she mentions, and her 3 techniques, again, had to get in there because I love her techniques. They're fitting to what we're talking about. And this,
how to avoid it in the first place.
It was the one, as I was searching through all of these, I had to change my search term to find her, because I wanted to look into preventive measures to try to avoid this kind of situation. And a lot of them didn't talk about that. They just talked about how to overcome it. So I think it's important to recognize what can cause it.
And try to avoid getting there in the first place. Sure.
At Nicola Milan.
In some cases, that's kind of almost like the other one of the tips from earlier about taking a few steps back, and then taking that a different fork, fork the path and try a different way. You might come to a different conclusion that way as well.
Yep. And she's also got a website, NicolaMilan.com. So check out her YouTube. Check out her website.
And she's going to tell us how to avoid songwriter's block in the first place.
What's up? It's Nicola Milan, and today we're going to talk about avoiding songwriter's block, like how to get over it if it's something that you're dealing with. This is something that I'm dealing with at the moment. It's really annoying. It's like you have all of these snippets of ideas and things like that kind of rolling around in your head or written down on paper, but nothing is working. Nothing is getting finished, nothing seems to sound good. You listen to like Bruno Mars's latest song and he's like really cool and you're just not. So you don't finish anything, and this could be a real pain. It's like having an itch that you can't scratch. And so today I've got 3 techniques that I'm using to push through this and get my songwriting mojo back. So the idea is that I'm going to take you through these and then we're going to do them together. Because if you're watching this video, chances are that you've got songwriting block as well. So let's do this together. We're just going to set ourselves a challenge, and then we're going to check back in a couple of weeks and see how we're going. So technique number 1 is to get back into habit. If you're writing all the time, and we're talking about daily or just really regularly, everybody knows that this stimulates those neural connections that you need to get that kind of creative juice flowing. You start becoming much more aware of songwriting. It kind of permeates into your everyday consciousness. You hear lyrics from songs that you've heard on the radio or as you're walking around. You hear cool grooves that you kind of just pick up on. You're watching a movie and you pay attention to the song because you're in the habit of songwriting, and so it's a conscious subconscious thing that kind of happens all the time. So if you haven't been writing for ages, you lose all of that. So the technique we're going to use to get back into the habit, and this is the hard bit, sort of, but could be fun, is we're going to write a song every single day. So the way to approach this though is because quite often, if you get out of habit and you've got songwriter's block, it's because nothing's quite good enough. You feel like you're not cool enough, it's not current enough, the lyrics suck, the groove's not perfect. So the idea is just to write 1 song a day. You've got to start it and you've got to finish it, but it can be crap. So it can be anything from like a kid's song. Even if you write pop music, just write a kid's song. It doesn't really matter. The whole idea is just doing it and getting back into the habit. Write like a little short song. Try different song structures. Just try writing without a keyboard, writing with a keyboard. Just try writing a piano song. Just try writing a lyric song. Write a rap. I don't know, whatever you want to do, just make sure you start and finish the song every single day. And I'm not saying that we're going to have to do this for a month, because come on, let's be realistic here. I'm not going to do it for a month, right? We're going to do 1 week. I think that's an achievable challenge. 1 week. I'm going to start mine today. You can start yours whenever, but I'm starting mine today because otherwise it just won't get done. So no, it's not the right time. Yes, I've got other things on, but this is a songwriting challenge, so we're going to push ourselves. I'm starting today. When are you going to start? Okay, technique number 2 is to brainstorm lyrics. Quite often I find that it's never the groove that's the problem of getting the song happening. I just seem to have no issue doing that, coming up with different grooves. But lyrics is the problem for me. So one technique that I have used in the past that I found that works, and I'm going to use that technique again for this, is to just brainstorm a whole bunch of lyrics. Again, not thinking too much about it. And I actually like to kind of listen to other songs, and it kind of provides a whole bunch of stimulation at the same time. So I'll put Billie Eilish on, I'll put Bruno Mars on, I'll put, Chris Stapleton on, I'll put like Ella Fitzgerald, anything on. And you just listen to the lyrics, and you're not writing and copying their lyrics, but they may say something that sparks something off for you. So that's one technique that I really like to use. Another thing that you can use, because I find that my life is just devoid of coolness. It's just not enough going on in the romance department, you know what I'm saying? It's like there's no drama. There is no drama. So it's like, well, what are you going to write about? So you can use like topics, just like pick a topic. And I think there was one song that Billie Eilish wrote, and everyone thinks it's about some deep and meaningful relationship or the world end or something, I don't know. She's like, no, it's about zombies. So, pick a topic and just write everything you can about that one topic. And when you start getting cryptic and you're using metaphors as a songwriter, people will make their own interpretations of it. And if you still, you can't pick a topic and make it work, choose a movie and then write about the characters and the story that the movie, kind of how that makes you feel. So you can do this with a lot of different things. You can use a book, you can use someone else's relationship, always a good one, especially if you've got friends that like to vent. So this is a technique I used recently. I was listening to Hosier, and I was just kind of into that like whole bluesy gospel kind of vibe, and I was just like dumping all these lyrics down, and I think like, I wish I could be your friend, it's not me, it's you. I was thinking about my previous relationship. I know it's not forever, we know things will end. I think I was like channeling vampires or something at that time. Anyway, and it stimulated some lyrics for the latest song, which was What Hurts You Most. And I was like, oh, it's a tragic thing to love what hurts you most. So that's a song that I'm writing at the moment, you know, and just to give you a quick sneak preview, it's something like, I'm everything you need, I'm everything you need, but everything you don't. It's a tragic thing to love what hurts you most. Yeah, it's all bluesy and stuff. Yeah, so that's a work in progress, using this technique, see it works. And technique number 3 is to write the sequel to songs. This is a really cool one. So when I was kind of working out this video, I'm like, oh, what should I talk about? I'm like, oh, yes, let's do a sequel to Chris Stapleton's, you know, what's it, Tennessee Whiskey? But instead of, you know, because it's all about like, oh, this chick saves him from like becoming a drunk and like going downhill, and he's like, oh, you're as sweet as strawberry wine, you're as smooth as blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, let's flip that and make the reverse. So what did I come up with? Oh yeah. So instead of her being like the good, I was like, okay, she could be the bad. And so obviously I'm going to flip it because I'm a girl, so I'm going to talk about this guy being bad, you know, like poison. And then what are some synonyms for the word poison? And it's like venom, toxic, contagion, very COVID. And I was like, okay, let's talk about drinks that are kind of evil, like spike my drink, laced with arsenic, ink runs through your veins, so black. And then I was listening to his, which was like, you're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey, whatever it was. And I'm like, yes, you're a bitter cup of coffee. You've got ink through your veins. You're everything I never wanted, but I want you just the same. So like those lyrics have just come from literally that technique of kind of just doing a reversal of someone else's song. And you know what, it's actually completely original. It's just a really great way of getting ideas. So, now that I hope I've inspired you to write a song, I'm inspired. I actually need to go now and keep working on this song, this like reverse Chris Stapleton one. The challenge is 1 song a week for 7 days. One song a day for a week. That's going to be my challenge. I challenge you to work out what challenge you think you can handle. Write it in the comments below so you make yourself accountable, which is really important. You've got to hold yourself accountable so you actually do it. So I want you to hold me accountable. And we're going to check back in a couple of weeks, just so you know I've got time to edit the video. I'm not going to cheat and take 2 weeks to write this, I promise. I just, you know, I've got stuff on and I need to have time to edit. And then we will see how far we've all come. Sound good? Okay, excellent. Thank you for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe for more videos like this. If you want free vocal warm-ups, I will link them below. Otherwise, I will see you soon. You're everything I need, but everything you don't. It's a tragic thing to love what hurts you most.
Oh, you're a bitter cup of coffee.
Bitter, toxic, contagious cup of coffee.
Glenn will never be able to drink coffee the same.
No, yeah, I need my coffee, my precious.
I really like the little bluesy idea she's got going there that she was playing there at the end.
Oh yeah, that was very cool.
And you know what I found ironic with the habit, her first suggestion. It's kind of like balancing your habits. There are good habits that you want to be in musically and you want to maintain, and then you want to recognize the bad habits that cause like writer's block and creative block so that you can get out of those.
And that's where, to me, the I guess I call it the Jack Black style of, you know, just writing a song, just making up a stupid story about what's happening in your day or what you see happening. You know, look out your window and, you know, oh, there's a dog over there. Oh, there's a dog over there. Whatever. You can just, you can just make anything into a song. It doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to rhyme. It doesn't have to have a character or whatever. It can just be whatever you're feeling, and, you know, something that you can now put words to it, if you even want words to it, because you don't have to. You
and,
just do an instrument.
And what I was thinking with the habit thing is, like, I have a habit of going to like A minor and C major. I mean, or you know, certain keys, and then playing certain progressions, and that's one of the blocks that I've been dealing with for years now, where, you know, I played these keys and these progressions every possible way. I have to break out of those habits.
What I want to see from you, and what we're going to work on, is doing a we're just going to look at the pentatonic scales, and just, you know, 12 pentatonic scales. So like you were saying, A minor and C major. If we looked at the pentatonics from that, we're only looking at, you know, basically if we look at C major pentatonic, we're looking at C, D, E, G, A. You know? Maybe doing A minor, same notes, but the other way. But once we look at all 12 of those, it's not that many to keep track of, right? And then once we have those 12, then every single song you hear ever is going to be one of those 12 is going to sound perfect. And at least two others are going to sound pretty good.
Well, if I
it's like,
if I take your challenge and I take her challenge, that gives me 7 days, and
you have 7 days. Take your challenge.
and that would be a good way to, like, fulfill that challenge, which I'm going to try.
Nice. And that's, again, because there's not that many. And once you do that, like, for me, it's not that I sat there and like drilled all of these different ones, but it's more when we're listening to songs and I'm sitting behind the keyboard, sometimes at rehearsal, somebody will just go into another song that I don't recognize. I find the bass note first. So, you know, I'll be like, oh, where is it? Okay, we're in G. Okay, good. So I hear that, and then I hear, oh, we're going to go, oh, now we're in C. Okay, I got that, and then T. Okay, so we got, you know, the 1, the 4, and the 5. And I can figure out that in that, and that, and that. I can make that happen. You know, it's like within a few moments, we jump right into whatever the song is based on, you hear what's going on, you match into it, and just don't be afraid to hit something to find it. Because that was the one thing that used to always get me on keyboard, is if they started playing before I knew what key we were in, then I can't hear enough of what I'm doing, because I'm playing quietly because I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm trying to hit like a note and I can't hear what note it is. So I'm like, I have to play some bad notes in order to find what we're actually doing.
To calibrate.
So I just started just like turning up more and just playing like a little riff of something, a couple notes back and forth, or and say, oh, does one of those sound wrong? Then okay, it's not that. Then we're gonna be, what about? You know, we'll figure it out. You know, one of those in there is going to be working. You just got to figure out which one we need.
Well, and if you're writing words, her brainstorming lyrics approach that she talked about, listening to other lyrics, and sometimes you will, like, come up with your own words in your head. You might even come up with your own melody. I do that all the time. Like, I'll listen to a song and I'm writing a whole different version of the song in my head.
Yeah. And again, for me, there's so much comes down to the pentatonics. Not that the final song has to be nothing but pentatonics, but they just flow so well, and so many melody lines really do start there and only start getting complicated in certain spots. But for the most part, they're just following these, you know, pentatonic lines because they sound so good. You know, they're just such bread and butter lines. And once you start getting comfortable,
her suggestion to make sequel lyrics, I love that one. Like,
and I was thinking about the writing about characters. That was the other one. Watching a movie or a book or whatever, some character or some situation even that happened to a character in a book, you just see it from a different perspective and tell that story, you know?
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking when she got into the sequel stuff. I was like, oh, that's what Glenn was talking about, like looking at it from a different angle.
Yep, exactly.
And that's where the bitter coffee came in.
Tip: you can actually add a little bit of cream and sugar, and like coffee's less bitter and sweet and tasty. Pro tip.
And those were some pro tips. I like them.
Absolutely.
At Nicola Milan.
How to avoid songwriter's block. Very cool.
Well, now we got to exercise the creative muscles.
Exactly. Now that we're going to be writing something every day, we got to know what kinds of exercises to do to get us ready to write every day.
And this one, this is not a new channel for us. We have been here before. Music by Maddie. At music-by-Maddie on YouTube, but he also has his website, musicbymaddie.com, and another channel with lots of different stuff. Just happens to be on topic for tonight, but when we do our compression night later, it's probably going to be coming back.
Yeah. Nice. Because we did reverb. We're going to come back for compression because what are the two things you need on everything?
Yep. And he does production tutorials for the next gen of music makers, so he's next gen.
Next gen. And these are songwriting exercises.
Yeah, to unlock your creativity so you don't get stuck.
Right.
Was a budding songwriter with dreams of becoming a star. He had written dozens of songs and was eager to record his first album. One day he sat with his guitar, his pencil and paper, ready to write another masterpiece, but feeling quite the opposite. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get past writer's block. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever struggled writing a song? I know I have. Writing a song is not the easiest thing to do, but here in this video, I'm gonna show you 5 songwriting exercises that you should know that's gonna help you move past writer's block, and it's also gonna help inspire you to write better songs. I'm even going to include my favorite exercise at the very end, so stay tuned for that. Let's do it. This first exercise comes from the world-renowned musician David Bowie, and it involves writing some song ideas and drawing them out of a hat. I call this one Song Ideas Out of a Hat. Here's how to do the exercise. Find a piece of paper, find a pencil, write down your lyric ideas on the piece of paper, tear them up into small pieces, and put them into a hat. About 20 will do just fine. The words can be as random as you want them to be. If you're struggling, just literally look around the room and pick out objects that you can see. Sky, backpack, computer, headphones. Why not? If you want to, you can also include emotions in this. That will make your song at the end a little bit more interesting. I am literally just tearing these out, but if you have a scissors, that would be great. Would recommend. Now we can put all of our pieces of scrap paper into a hat and draw one out, maybe even multiple out to combine some of the words and thoughts you had and create a song around those words. So let's see what I draw. Microphone. What? And sad microphone. It's gonna be a hit, I can already tell. But remember, the goal isn't to write a hit, the goal is to get those creative juices flowing. You just wanna start writing, and sometimes all it takes is a little bit of inspiration to do that. Get creative with it, be silly, that's totally fine. And this exercise is actually how David Bowie wrote some of his songs. He used a similar technique and would combine random words that he pulled from a hat. Doesn't stack up to my favorite exercise, but it's pretty fun to do. If you're interested in learning about songwriting or music production, I help artists just like you get better at each of those crafts. I release regular content that helps you become a better artist. Consider subscribing if you want to join the community. Let's move on to number 2. Okay, this next one is pretty self-explanatory, but it can be pretty powerful in making you write songs quickly. I also have a way of playing it that will make it more fun. This one is called Giving Yourself a Time Limit. I know what you're thinking, these titles are really good, and yes, thank you. This one is a timed songwriting exercise. If you're struggling with writing songs slowly, this is going to help you pick up the pace. There are a number of ways you can choose how much time you give yourself to write a song. You can simply choose a number like 20 minutes, or you can let fate decide by rolling the dice. Keep in mind the less time you have, the harder this gets, but sometimes those restraints can lead to some cool creations. To roll the dice, we're going to go to a place called calculator.net/dice roller, link in the description below. I'm going to choose I'm feeling spicy, so maybe I'll choose 4 dice. And now I'm going to roll the dice. And voila, 15. I get 15 minutes to write my song. How fun is that? I use this exercise whenever I feel like writing lyrics is too much work. It really helps to make things a little bit more interesting and fun. Because that's really the thought of writing songs. It shouldn't be hard. I don't really use these first 2 exercises nearly as much as these last 3 exercises, though. On to exercise number 3. This one I'm calling songwriting prompts. Sometimes while you're songwriting, you really just don't know what to write about. This exercise or technique solves that. All you have to do for this exercise is find a songwriting prompt online that will help you determine what you should write your song about. If you're looking for a resource, I actually have one available for free on my website. I've created 101 songwriting prompts to help you get started with this very exercise. So let's go to that right now. What about a song about growing up too fast or slow? Or if you're not feeling that, maybe a love song for someone you've only seen from afar. Or maybe even an ode celebrating summer days spent outdoors. This is a list of 101 song prompts, so if you don't like one, you can just go to another one. Link in the description below. Once again, go check it out. Those first 3 were some fun songwriting games that I will use occasionally if I'm feeling a little bit bland with my songwriting. But these next 2 are actually songwriting techniques I use almost every day. This next exercise I'm going to call the theme brainstorm. This is the exercise I use most often, hands down. It's not my favorite, but it's the one I use most often. The way this exercise works is before I start writing any lyrics at all, I take some time to brainstorm relevant ideas to the beat that I'm listening to. Sometimes I'll put ideas, phrases, objects, adjectives, whatever I'm feeling at the time. I'm literally just brain spewing onto the paper. I will separate my lyric sheet into 2 parts. One is for ideas, one is for my actual lyrics. And once I have that, I will first, before writing anything over here, I will just keep brainstorming ideas and feelings and thoughts I have about listening to the music. After I've filled out this side, I will select some of the words that I like better than others and try to fit them in to my actual lyrics on this side. I'm not trying to use all of these words. I'm just trying to create a palette for myself so that I can actually paint a picture with the rest of the song lyrics. I found that this stream of consciousness flow has led me to some really great song lyrics. If I'm stuck using a particular word or phrase that I chose before, maybe I'll go back and I'll just choose a different one. I'll also use this in combination with some of my favorite tools online, which would be a thesaurus, thesaurus.com, and rhymezone.com, which is a rhyming dictionary. If that word or phrase I chose isn't working, I'll go to thesaurus and maybe find something similar that conveys a similar idea. If I'm still struggling trying to find a rhyme for a particular word, I'll type it into rhymezone.com and go from there. If you want a more in-depth tutorial on how specifically I use thesaurus and rhymezone.com, then let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to help you out. This technique helps me stay focused and write songs fast. If you flip through my lyric book, every single one of the songs I write uses this same brainstorm technique. I also use it as a great place to take notes on what the client wants from a song. It's a win-win. All right, now on to my favorite songwriting exercise and one that I use fairly frequently. I'm calling this one character writing. One of the biggest blocks to writing a song is yourself. The reason that you're stuck in writer's block is because you're in your own head. Your ego gets in the way of putting pen to paper. If you wanted to, you could probably write some hot garbage in 30 seconds and have a full song. But deep down, you know that that's not good enough. You know you'd never show the world that song. This exercise is all about shattering those preconceived notions and those sometimes unrealistic goals that you set for yourself. And the way to do it is by writing a song as if you were somebody else. It sounds wild, but for me, it works. Sometimes this is all it takes for me to push past writer's block. When I picture myself writing as somebody else or for somebody else, or even in a genre I don't normally work in, all of those expectations I have for myself disappear. I'm much more likely to just put things down on paper and get songwriting when I know that it's not going to be released under my name. Sometimes I'll pretend that I'm writing the cringiest pop song imaginable, and I'll try to make it extremely extra cringy. Sometimes I'll pretend I'm writing an old country song. Sometimes I'll sing in an accent. I'm trying to get out of my head with something that I have low expectations for so I can just get songwriting. Now, a lot of times these songs aren't the songs that I'm gonna release, but that's not the point. The point is to start songwriting. Oftentimes, once you get the ball rolling with songwriting, you feel like you're in a flow. Maybe write one song in an accent, and then afterwards you'll feel inspired to continue writing songs for yourself. You're trying to get your songwriting gears in motion again. There's no guarantee that this song is ever going to be released by you or put on your album, so don't worry about it. Not only are you actually putting pen to paper and writing songs, but you're getting better at the craft. On top of all of this, it will absolutely improve your songwriting skills as well. And it's pretty fun to do. Give it a try. This really is my favorite exercise on the list. If you enjoyed this video, I have another video that I think you'll find really interesting. It's called How to Write a Song as If You Are a Complete Beginner. And even for advanced songwriters, there's some cool tips in there that are going to help you improve your songwriting. You can click on that up here and watch it. Always keep in mind, the more songs you can write, the better you're going to get at it. If you're stuck in your own head and stuck and stifled by perfectionism, then that's not really achieving what you want to. Songwriting is complicated, but it doesn't have to give you a headache. It can be a fun and creative process, I promise. Come check out these exercises whenever you're feeling uninspired, and I promise you can move past that writer's block. Peace out.
Gotta move past the writer's block, yeah.
Great exercises too. That the last one, like thinking like you writing as a pseudonym approach, does kind of give you that freedom to like write as anybody, write for somebody else.
From the perspective of somebody else, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Although the theme Brainstorm is my jam. That's my favorite one.
And Tony's newest song, Hot Garbage.
Yes, Hot Garbage is going to be a hit.
Yep, I like it.
but it is the one that, like, for me, sometimes it is a title, you know, or just that one objective. Like, I want to write about this right now, and sometimes it's the music that I'm listening to, and the theme comes from the mood of the music.
Exactly. It's all about mood sometimes. Sometimes it's all about a perspective or a vision of something. Sometimes it's about expectations, and sometimes it's about flipping things around. You know, all kinds of different ways of trying to get around it. If it's a writer's block specifically around characters, or, you know, the story that has, you know, seems like it's not going where it needs to, or doesn't seem to have legs, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, his final thoughts really summed it up well.
Yeah,
I'm convinced, Maddie. I'm convinced. At music-by-Maddie.
Musicbymaddie.com.
Yeah, he does have next gen tips.
Indeed.
Now,
next week,
Sensei. I love my wisdom from him.
We'll see what kinds of interesting methods he has for getting around the writer's block situation. But we know we've definitely done some things from his site before, and we will be back again in the future.
Yep, at Samurai Guitarist. And this is about conquering writer's block, like overcoming it.
Getting it on out of here. 8 ways.
Everyone, and welcome back to another Sensei series. Today we're looking at 8 ways musicians can conquer writer's block. We've all been there, trying to come up with something, but no matter how hard we try, nothing good comes out. You quickly start wondering if you'll ever have a good musical idea again, which leads you to question if you were ever even good at music to begin with. Well, we're going to try to prevent this from happening next time. If you write instrumental metal music, if you write mainstream pop songs, whatever you do, these tips will apply across the board. Let's get into it. Number 1, rewrite a song from a new perspective. If you can't come up with an idea whatsoever, take a pre-existing song and write a response to it. Everyone knows what's on Freddie Mercury's mind when he's singing Fat Bottom Girls. There's not a lot left for the imagination. But what if you wrote a song from the perspective of the fat bottom girl? This is obviously a fairly humorous example, but you can do this with any song. It's a quick and easy way to come up with a fresh idea that will hopefully spark your imagination. You can also write a follow-up song. What would be the aftermath of Kiss's I Wanna Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day? It would probably be a fairly dark song about overdoing it. How's this for a title? I regret what I did last night and want to sleep it all away. Now, you're not trying to make a carbon copy of these songs with new lyrics or anything like that, but rather you're trying to use them as something that can spark your creativity. Tip number 2 is somewhat similar. I call it the copy and twist. You take a song that you already know and start changing one element at a time until what you have is totally unrecognizable from the original. Let's do an example. I'm going to start with Battle Hymn of the Republic, a song that's in the public domain and won't get me a copyright notice. It sounds like this. What if I took that, played the same chords, same rhythm, but tweaked the melody? It's already starting to sound a fair bit different, but what if I changed up the rhythm now? And finally, the chords. At this point, it's a totally new song. You can start off changing other elements too, or you can take one thing like the chords, melody, or lyrics and try to build a new song from that. It ain't plagiarism if it's entirely unrecognizable, so make sure you do take enough steps to change it from the original. Tip number 3, the rearrange. When you're stuck with a chunk of a song that you can't finish, try moving things around. So often, I've written a first verse, a chorus, and then hit the wall when it comes to the second verse. I've heard this referred to as second verse-itis. A good thing to try when this ailment strikes is take your first verse, move it into the second verse position, and try to write a new first verse. You can do this when writing instrumental music too. Say you were saving a big crescendo for the end of the song. Well, what happens if you move that into the middle? By swapping things around like this, it gets you thinking differently, which can hopefully be the catalyst for crushing writer's block. Now, these first 3 tips are quick fixes, but there are things you can do to prevent yourself from ever getting stuck in the first place. Which brings me to tip number 4, keep a music journal. Now, when I say journal, I don't necessarily mean a physical notepad, though that may work. Rather, somewhere that you can collect ideas when you're on the go. You want to walk around the world with your radar ready to pick up any sort of inspiration. When I was focusing on songwriting, I trained myself to subconsciously look for possible song ideas. Whenever I would come across an interesting phrase or idea, something inside me would go off and I would jot it down in my phone. For example, years ago, I called up a friend and asked him if he wanted to go to a party, to which he replied, "Yeah, I would be up for getting down." What a great phrase, I thought to myself and took a note. When I would find time to sit down and work on my music, I'd scroll through my list of ideas and see what popped out at me. That phrase, "up for getting down," turned into a pop country song. If you want to hear it, I'll link to it in the description. But the reason for doing this is so you have a starting point when you sit down and write. It's incredibly hard to sit down with nothing and say, okay, time to come up with something incredible and actually make it happen. If you've got a stockpile of ideas you've essentially been working on day in, day out, one of them is going to stick. You just got to make sure you're replenishing the bank. If you do instrumental stuff, that's okay too. Keep audio memos and sing melodies and ideas into your phone, so when it's time to compose, you can go through them. Next up, number 5, practice writing. A big thing that I think songwriters and composers often neglect is actively improving their craft. The best songs I ever wrote came after I made an effort to become a better writer. I practiced writing like I practiced guitar, so that I was relying more on a system than trying to catch lightning in a jar. You can do exercises to improve your idea development. You can study your favorite songs with a microscope, you can take classes on songwriting, and you can read books on how to get better at it. On that note, I want to recommend Writing Better Lyrics by Pat Pattison. For a long time, this was my Bible. It's a book that doesn't necessarily teach you what to write, but rather how you can do what you do better. It's not overly expensive, I'll link to it in the description. But by working on this stuff, it'll make it so that writer's block is a rarity. You'll get a better instinct for what idea has substance, so you won't end up chasing something that leads nowhere. You do want to make sure you spend time just writing purely from the heart, but by doing the homework, it'll make that time significantly more productive. Next up, number 6, collaborate. It's the old saying, 2 heads are better than 1. I find that editing ideas and developing them comes a lot more naturally to me than coming up with them. So when I've worked with people who are strong in the places that I'm weak, I've had some great success. If you do happen to get stuck, you have twice as many people working on a solution. And you know what's even better than 2 heads? 3. I've found that 3 people can often be the perfect number for a collaboration for a couple reasons. If 2 people have opposing ideas, the third writer can serve as the unbiased source of reason. 4 people usually doesn't work because there's just too many voices, and often you'll end up just breaking off into pairs, whereas with 3 people, everybody's involved in a communal effort. Getting the chemistry right with collaborators is often hard to find. It's kind of like dating. Keep putting yourself out there and go with what feels natural. Next up is something that has worked for me. Number 7, just power through it. Keep writing until you just force your way through the writer's block. Now, I should warn you, this doesn't always work. Sometimes I feel like the bulk of my time songwriting is just getting the bad ideas out of my system to free up space for the good ones. You do have to be careful with this one and know your limits, because if you try to force your way through the block and don't get anywhere, you'll usually end up more bummed out than if you just simply took a break. Which brings me to number 8, take a break. Do something totally different and come back to what you're working on with fresh ears. With this one as well, you need to be honest with yourself. If you find yourself using this method fairly frequently, is it because it's actually efficient or because you just don't want to put in the work? But if your nature is to work on something until it's fixed, you can get obsessed and get far too into your own head. By taking a break, it can give you that much needed perspective shift. Playing sports is the thing that does that for me. No matter how much a song is bugging me, if I go and play hockey or soccer for an hour, I'm going to forget about it completely for that time. If nothing else, I won't feel as burnt out when I come back to it. Make sure you have something like this. Life is all about balance. That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and picked up something new. If you have a topic that you'd like me to cover on a future Sensei series, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Shirts like the one I'm wearing are available over at www.shopsamuraiguitarist.com in a variety of styles and colors. Thank you all for watching. If you want to check out another Sensei series, hit that link up there. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. An extra big thank you to everyone who supports my channel through Patreon. I'm Samurai Guitarist, happy writing, and I'll see you again soon.
Oh, I
Life
want
is
that.
all about balance.
I want that Sensei baseball shirt.
Absolutely.
And I'd be
Very
down.
nice.
I'd be down for getting up. See, I copied and twisted. I took his second tip.
See what you did there.
But his collaborate. Interesting observation on like 3 being a good number for creative collaboration.
Yep. Yeah, it breaks the logjam of 2 for sure, and not too many cooks in the kitchen. Right in that nice sweet spot.
Well, it takes that like Supreme Court kind of mentality where you don't want an even number because you might get pairs that go off in conflicting groups of thought there. And with 3, you will always have a tiebreaker.
Yep. And in some cases, I mean, I work with some bands that are even much larger than 3, but a lot of cases they're not writing necessarily, or if there's writing, it would be coming from, 1 or 2 of them working together to do the writing, rather than, you don't have 9 people actively writing a song, at one time, for example. Not most of the time. Usually it's, hey, I got this song I was thinking about, or there's a song that so-and-so was bringing to the, bringing to rehearsal that we can maybe do this part and this part together. And
well, and a lot of times in those scenarios, you'll see like the guitarist and the singer kind of starting the writing process, and then the drummer and the bassist will kind of go with what the initial
pick up on the
songwriters
groove.
do. Yeah.
Sometimes even just a title, title for the main idea or theme, kind of, or what the song is going to be about, and then you pick up from the chords and whatever they're doing. The intensity of the strumming, all that kind of stuff can feed into what and inform the bass line that you're going to come up with and all of that.
Yeah,
and then you build bit by bit.
In a good band situation, like songwriting is a flow where 1 starts making noise, and then 2 start making noise, and then 3. In a good band, eventually everybody in there knows their part.
Yep. And that's one where we've talked before about using jam tracks and things like that. And actually one that I was talking about with the band recently was Sissy Strut, which is a song that I like the Meters version of the Sissy Strut. It's an awesome song. And I've also seen some really good versions by, Jocko has done a really good version of Sissy Strut that I've seen. And I saw one by Tomo. We've talked about Tomo Fujita also, guitar teacher. And there's a version from, I think it was NAMM in 2016 or whatever, but it's a really good video of him and a couple other guitarists on stage just going into Sissy Strut and just killing it. And it's just a simple song. It's just a back and forth between, you do this phrase 4 times and then you do that phrase 4 times. And you just go back and forth, and it just keeps doing the same thing. Sounds like it would get repetitive, but in a lot of cases, they just get into such a nice jam from it that it's the kind of thing that we can just, you can get a couple of musicians together and you build intensity, you bring it back down, all that kind of thing. You can see how tight the band is or how well they're communicating with what's going on stage.
And with parts like that, it's throwing the musical frisbee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you'll see them doing that. Like, they see him look over at him and, well, it could just be eyebrows, or it could just be, he went from, playing and focusing on himself to like looking over at him and looking at his hands and be like, okay, now it's your go. And then he picks up on it and takes off.
See, I like when you
It's
have,
about picking up on the key.
I like when you have like multiple soloists who are doing that, and you like say 2 guitarists that are soloing off of each other, and like one does something while the other one's looking, and then all of a sudden the other one responds, and the other one's looking like, okay, I got some more.
Yep. And then one gives you the, oh, I like that. When he goes, wee, it's like nice big bend at the end. Yeah.
You've been studying with
Always.
Sensei.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff.
Yeah, so he's always full of wisdom. I will go to you, Sensei, anytime we have a topic you have in your library.
And as he said there also, life is all about balance, and that's key importance.
Well, that's what I like about his advice and his musical approach, because like I said, we went here for guitar, but he has such a healthy balance of musical knowledge and wisdom that he has a balanced musical breakfast every day.
Exactly. A
At
balanced musical. Was that you?
Oh no, it might the dog, I think.
That's all right. But thank you, Samurai. Thank you, Sensei.
So and we've heard some common themes there when it comes to like playing every day or keeping the muscles going, and avoiding the things that would create writer's block. And when I was going through these, this intrigued me because you think that like great songwriters out there like John Lennon, would he have writer's block? And yes, he did.
Yeah, everybody did, but they just different people deal with it in different ways and get over it in different ways, or don't. Some people, they hit writer's block and just end a career because they couldn't think of what to write next. They had a good album, then they had an okay album, and then it was like nothing.
Well,
that's happened.
And in his case, like he's in the middle of like touring, playing all the time, like every night, and sometimes the writer's block, even if you are playing every night and feels like you're exercising that creative muscle, when you're pumping out songs the way they were at that point, and the expectations that they had for themselves and the fans had for them could cause those kind of creative blockage.
Yeah. And a lot of times some of that can also be the thing where, stars are really larger than life, and, trying to live up to that larger than life persona that people build for them, day in and day out for year in and year out. I'm sure, that takes a toll on a lot of people as well.
Yeah. And
not everybody's up for the ride.
Again, this channel name like intrigued me. It's like Crafty Music Tips at
Nice.
Crafty
Cool.
Music Tips. Yeah. I like crafty, and I like music.
Crafty is good. Perfect together. Like chocolate and peanut butter.
And looking at his videos, he does have a wide variety of hardware stuff. So we might be going back there on a Gear Whores night.
Indeed.
Reactions to music.
all sorts of stuff.
So we're going to see
And this one's
what like got John Lennon into a writer's block for a moment and how he got out of it.
Yeah.
This situation, you're sitting there, you're trying to create something, whatever it is, and you just can't think of anything.
I got nothing. I'm blank.
And it's like, whatever you think of, it just ain't any good.
It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. You stupid monkey.
Hey, welcome to Crafty Music Tips. My name's Crafty, and in this video, we're going to talk about how you can stop writer's block. Now, just a quick disclaimer, I'm not actually sure if John Lennon, the great man himself, actually had any severe writer's block, but there's a couple of things he said in interviews regarding the song Nowhere Man that I thought were very interesting on this subject, so let's check it out. Wait a minute, you don't know the song Nowhere Man? If you don't, that's cool. It's a great, awesome song that you should listen to. I'll leave a link below. So, in one interview he said, I was just sitting trying to think, then I'd actually stopped trying to think of something, nothing would come, I was cheesed off and I went for a lie down, having given up. Then I thought of myself as Nowhere Man, sitting in this nowhere land. And in another interview he says, I'd spent 5 hours that morning trying to write a song that was meaningful and good, and I finally gave up and lay down. Then Nowhere Man came, words and music, the whole damn thing, as I lay down. So letting it go is what the whole game is. You put your finger on it, it slips away, right? You know, you turn the lights on and the cockroaches run away. You can never grasp them. So I, for one, as a songwriter, found that very interesting, that someone who wrote so many hit songs was a human being and he wasn't getting what he wanted out. He struggles like what we all do. And so his method was finding the zone, the inspiration, getting into that zone where you just, all of a sudden you have a bunch of ideas and the juices start flowing.
With meditation, there's no limit to what we can imagine.
And in addition to this inspiration zone, what John Lennon also realized is that if you just embrace the situation, which may not be going to plan, and use it to your advantage, well, then you get something out of it that you wouldn't have had if, you know, for instance, if he was writing a song earlier and it just worked, then he wouldn't have felt, well, here's a real nowhere man. So he got an extra bonus song out of the situation. Now, that doesn't always work, but try it out in your situation. Now, I remember Michael Jackson saying in an interview once that he says that it's a blessing and a curse, you know, when you get an inspiration, a blessing when you get it, but the curse is usually that it doesn't happen at a very opportune time. There's an interview where he said he was doing a stadium show in the 80s, and, you know, this is way before phones, and he used to carry a little mini cassette dictaphone around with him, and he was just about to board a helicopter to take him to this big stadium gig, and he got this great idea, and of course he's there with the helicopter noise in the background and he's like singing into his little dictaphone. Now, this is easier said than done, of course, but the moral of the story is if you have that inspiration wave, no matter what the situation is, just do your absolute very best in order to be able to just go with that inspiration and see where it takes you. I know myself, I've written some of my best songs when I should be sleeping. Now, so harnessing these zones that I'm talking about is easier said than done. I remember when I was telling an old lecturer of mine that I was having trouble sleeping, and he just said to me, it just comes in waves. Waves? Yeah, waves, you know, like the ocean. As soon as one goes and it's not there, there will be another one coming pretty soon. You just got to wait it out. So if you wait it out, your creative zone will present itself to you. But if you can't wait, or you've just tried and nothing's working, I've got another tip for you that was given to me years ago. I'll tell you the story. So I was a young lad, I was studying music at the time, and the songwriting lecturer was the person that I wanted to ask, how do I fix writer's block? And when I asked him, I said, look, can I ask you a question? And he said, look, I'm in a rush. Can you make it really quick? I've got 1 minute. And I said, okay, writer's block, how do you fix it?
Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it.
So as fast as he could, I'll try and recreate it as best as I can. He told me this. Okay, so your brain is split into two sides. You've got your creative side and your analytical side. What's happening with you is that your analytical side is overpowering the creative side. Every time you write something, you think that it's bad because you're analyzing it, and your creative side is just going, well, that's it. I'm not going to bother in putting in any effort because the analytical side just keeps winning. So now what you need to do is just write down anything. Get a blank piece of paper and just write down anything. Stuff, whatever it is. My dog took a poo today. I don't care. Just write down something, because then you're letting your creative side have a voice, and then what your analytical side can do is try and fix the dodgy stuff at a later date. Whew. All right. That was hard talking that fast. Here's a few quotes that I really feel help add to this. You can always edit a bad page, but you can never edit a blank page. It's better to be looking at it than looking for it. And this one my dad always says, if you don't have it, you can't use it. So if you've got writer's block, just write down something. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be so lame, but it doesn't matter, because what's lamer is just going, I got nothing.
Prepare to be written! I'm doing it!
Now, if you're watching this thinking that I'm telling you to just be happy with writing inferior levels of stuff. Oh, hell no! Now, the analytical side has our best intentions at heart. It wants us to put out good material. It doesn't want us to put out stuff that's bad. But when you're trying to create something, and when the analytical side keeps on overpowering the creative side, well, then nothing's ever going to get out. Nothing's ever going to be good enough. So what you have to do is you have to make a deal with the analytical side. You have to tell it, look, give yourself a break, have a day off, and then once I've written all of this stuff, then you get to work. Then you get a chance to make it so that when I'm revealing stuff to others, that it's actually going to be good. It's kind of like you're writing a first draft and you're just relaxing with it, and nobody really ever has to see your first draft. You don't have to let them see anything up to, say, the 5th draft when the analytical side has gone in and had extra revisions fixing it. Now, another tip, can you imagine if John Lennon only wrote his first section to A Day in the Life and then never had a chance to have a collaborator in Paul McCartney bring his other section that woke up, fell out of bed? That was Paul McCartney's section, if you didn't realize. And so that was the two of them only having little snippets. They had a bit of a writer's block, or they didn't have a chance to develop those ideas any further. And those two separate ideas were able to commingle as one amazing idea.
Day in the Life was very much a collaboration, because when John first played it to me, as he did Strawberry Fields, just strumming away, it didn't have a middle, and it was a very short song. And he said to Paul, have you got anything we can put in here? Paul said, not really. He said, I've got this song which I've been trying to get something out of. It doesn't go very far. And again, it had nothing to do with John's song. Woke up, got out of bed, completely different tempo, a little jazzy little tune. And John said, that'll do. We'll put it in there.
So with that in mind, here's a tip for you. Find a collaborator. Having a collaborator, even in the early stages before you get a draft, can help you feed off of someone. And think of it like this. It's better playing a game of tennis with somebody on the other side of the court. So find somebody to feed off of.
Every time we say goodbye, I die a little.
So there you have it. There were a best bunch of tips on combating writer's block. Was that helpful? Let me know in the comments below. What was the most helpful for you? Also, what would be something else that I could give you a hand with in another upcoming YouTube video? Now, if you found this video helpful, I've got a bunch of other videos on this channel that you can check out. And also, just before I go, I've got a free gift to offer you. It's called 5 Steps to Fast Improvement. I don't know about you, but I've definitely had many times in my life where I'm just like, I just really can't get the inroads to the improvement that I want, whether it's an instrument or with songwriting or with getting gigs, anything, whatever it is, whatever the skill is that you're trying to develop, and if you're not getting where you want to get at the rate that you want to get, well, what I've done in this ebook, it's a free ebook download. I just go through the 5 steps that you can take in order to make it a really clear step-by-step process. So if that sounds like something that could help you, then click the link below. My name is Crafty. I'll see you in another music tips video really soon, wherever you are. I hope it's rocking.
Man, Crafty is awesome. Those were some very crafty tips. I love getting in the zone as a way to get out of your creative rut. You know, once you do start to zone in on something, it's not hard to like just let that's when it feels like playing again for me. It doesn't feel like work.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that's part of also when people talk about, doing like, learning the scales and learning, chord progressions and things like that, but then kind of forgetting about it and just letting the music happen. Like you've done enough of each of the scales to let your fingers just kind of fall into one of the scales and actually just make music without thinking about the scales.
And doesn't it make sense that guys like John Lennon or Michael Jackson, this would be their approach? It's like, you've done so many damn songs. You've done this. Come on, get in the zone. For them, that's the go-to way to get out of the creative rut.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the collaborator step is also key. Having a fresh perspective, having somebody else look at it and see, do you have something for this? And it was kind of like, oh, well, not really, but I have this other thing. And then, boom, you mashed them together and it happened to work out perfectly.
Yeah. What I loved about how Crafty kind of turned that story into his suggestions, like shifting into the creative versus analytical. That is the challenge, where when you're working on the song and you're in analytical mode, his suggestion of like, showing it, bouncing it off of a collaborator. This is what goes on with BandLab. As he was talking about it, I'm thinking like, I'd be happy to show a work in progress as I'm fleshing it out to like a bandmate. And, I'm working on this idea. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us, I guess, are getting into the habit of like, ooh, I got this idea. Post, publish, and sometimes like the half-baked idea on BandLab, you might not get the response that encourages you to continue developing it, and you've created a whole new form of writer's block at that point.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that could have become, if you did hang on to that and revisit it after a week or a month or whatever, you could have made it into something completely different and something amazing. But, if you published it and you just kind of forget about it and then move on to something else, you publish something that was good, it's a good nugget, but it's something that you want to revisit and see about fleshing out at a later time.
If you're going to put out your ideas to see what kind of reaction they get on BandLab, have thick skin, be tough enough so that no matter what response you get, because if you're one of those who's like, oh, I didn't get any likes or I didn't get any listens on this particular post, don't let any of that stop you from developing an idea more.
Mm-hmm. And I agree, Uni. The title thing is big. That's where a lot of times I would get something that's just a guitar, just a guitar rhythm chords going through something, just through some changes and a title, and then from that try to figure out how intense the bass line should be, for example, and all that kind of thing. You're trying to match it to what the title inspires from, what you're trying to put together.
And again, he mentioned something we've heard throughout most of these, which was take notes, jot things down. Some suggested journals, others suggested lists, but the important thing is to not let a good thought or idea get lost because you're in the middle of the process.
And when you mentioned the little tape recorder, on the way onto the helicopter or whatever, we all have a little tape recorder right in our pocket. So, it's like there's no excuse for not getting, it's like, oh, I had this idea for a song the other day and I was like, oh, I'll remember it later. It's like, Yeah, I'll remember it later. Like I've fallen for that before, and that's why I've got the phone now. And it's like if I have something, I'll even just call my house and leave myself a voicemail. I've done that before. Leave my voice off a voicemail with either a lyric idea where it's a phrase or a couple of lines, or whether it's a melody or a chord progression. I can hum it or whatever. But just getting something down, a nugget of it, is all you need to remind yourself and go, oh, now I remember. So that's also, again, why I'm a big proponent of recording, full recording session or full practice sessions, where not intending to release it as a thing ever, but just recording it all so you can listen back, remind yourself of how the groove went, because you might have had that one magical moment where everything was working just right.
Yeah, notes to myself.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff.
Yeah, crafty music tips, and he's got the .com too.
Yep.
Worth a visit.
It also happens when producers are trying to make beats, right?
Well, yes, I couldn't ignore the beat makers here because there's a lot of them on BandLab, and I can see them hitting creative blocks more likely than a lot of other situations, because getting a beat that sounds fresh and new, God, there's a zillion of them out there. How do you keep that motivation and keep coming up with something when it really does feel like it's all been done?
Yeah. And it's another place where people can fall into the preset trap as well. It's like, okay, well, I always use these drums, and okay, I always use this sound here, and I always use this sound here. And then it's just like, well, if you're always using the same sounds, you're going to frequently get things that sound the same.
I was just talking with a guitarist the other night about, like, if you always have your go-to preset like that, eventually your guitar is going to feel and sound the same on everything. And these are things that can create that writer's block when you just don't feel this new energy of a new tone, a new sound.
Another thing that actually comes back to something you said much earlier about the the new sound, the new tone, being able to actually get inspired by doing covers. By if I start doing a ZZ Top cover, for example, and I start playing guitar on a ZZ Top cover, that's going to sound completely different. If I can get myself that tone, and I can get my guitar to sound like I'm actually ZZ Top, and then play another song a little bit later, and it's something totally different, Boston or whatever. It's like something completely different, and then be able to actually sound convincingly like you're those people. So that's where the chameleon comes in, being able to take your tone and your style and be able to sound like it's plausible to put that into that song or into that song. You can put it in either context, so you have to be able to go back and forth with whatever instrument you're using.
Yeah, and if you take some of the suggestions we got from some of these videos, like Samurai, you take a melody and twist it up, change how the progression, the way you go at the notes, or the rewriting of the words. Like, take those words. Doing a cover should help influence you to make your own version of that song.
Yep. And even the part you talk about changing element by element, you start where it's something, and then you change out, a part of it, and then you change out another part. And by the time you're done making enough changes, you have something that is totally new. That's a good way of doing things as well, because it had something to get you started, and it's not staring at the blank page, because that's where you don't want to be. You don't want to spend a lot of time staring at that blank page.
Well, and as you start to recognize more and more songs, with all the songs that I've done, now it's impossible for me to start doing something and not catch myself like, oh, this is just Imagine with the different approach, but it's the same chord progressions. So you might find sometimes, like, as you're starting to write something, that it is another song because it's the same chord progression, but that's your challenge then to make it your own song.
Yeah. And I know we've run into that so many times where, we just start grooving along to something, and somebody's like, oh yeah, and then this chord. Oh yeah, and then this chord. And it always, almost always turns out to be, the 1-5-6-4, or, the 6-4, 6-4-1-5 or whatever. It's going to end up somewhere in there or whatever.
9 times out of 10 in the old days, it ended up being Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Exactly. And that's where like, oh, this sounds so awesome. And it's like, right, because you did this, and then but no, we did it this way this time and that way this time. And like, right? And that's exactly what that turns into.
And there's
Or somebody walks
100
in like,
songs that do that.
right. Or like you guys are playing a song and like, everybody in the room, everybody who's playing it right now, they all think it's a brand new song and you're like, yeah, it's awesome. And somebody comes walking in and they're like, oh yeah, you guys are playing. I love that song. And they're like, no, this is a new song. And you're like, no, that's this one for sure. And then like, as soon as they mention it, everyone's like, God damn it, that is that
Yeah,
song.
that the one guy who recognizes it ruins it for everybody else.
Everybody else is like, oh, you just killed like the last 10 minutes where we were like, yeah, we got something good going.
Yeah, but if you do have that guy that recognizes it, then you know you haven't changed it enough.
Exactly. And he just saved you from a copyright violation when you do make your song. You could have gone all the way down the road of production and been like, wait, that's just a remake.
Well, the beauty of like progressions are never going to be copyrighted. If they start copywriting progressions, I'm done.
We have trouble.
At that point, like I'm done trying to comply with a copyright demand that's impossible to enforce, because progressions, notes, scales, how you do things like that isn't the same as like saying the same exact words as somebody else wrote. Notes cannot be copywritten that way.
One thing that we've talked about before is ways of like starting with something like one of those really common progressions. Like if you looked at the list of the top 50 or whatever chord progressions in popular music, just as a starting point, like you would find, there's a million songs that are this one, and this one, like the top couple are like super popular, right?
Yeah.
But you could take any one of those that's already really popular and just do one chord substitution, where instead of, again, if we take that 1-6-4, the 1-5-6-4 as an example, take that 1-5-6-4 and take the 4 out, and instead say, oh, what about 1-5-6-3 or 1-5-6-2? Like, what would that sound like? And now it's a completely different progression, but you started from something that was the most common and just did a simple substitution where you're still in a valid chord that's in the key, all the notes are good, all that, because you just took one of the other chords that we talk about.
The beauty is
you dropped it in there.
It doesn't matter whether you do a chord substitution or a different approach to your attack, how you play the chords, like strumming up and down or individually. All of those are legit ways of changing a progression and making it your own, making it different than what you were inspired by.
Yep. Another easy one is hanging on, if you're doing a 1-4-5 progression, instead you could do the 1-4, and hang on that 4 an extra time, 1-4-4-5 or the 1-4-5-5. Like you hang somewhere extra. Or 1-4-5-1.
That's what Sensei did. That's what Sensei did with his examples. He gave you an example of modifying it this way, modifying it by the time, how long you stay on the chord. The moment you do that, the guy in the room's not necessarily going to recognize right away. Like as my ears gotten better, sometimes it takes me a while. Like I have to listen to half the song before I realize, like, oh, I do know those chords. They are this song, but they're doubled, they're stretched.
Right.
It's not
half-time, double time.
It's not a perfect duplication of where they derived from.
And that's why it's a completely different song that was legit. And they said, yep, you can do that.
Yeah. And then I say, that sounds like, or it has that vibe, but
it's in that family, in that neighborhood.
And I like when people do that, because the song feels familiar, because it's like a song that you heard, but at the same time, it's a whole new way of hearing it.
But we don't want to do Ice Ice Baby, right?
Well, that's sampling, though. That's different.
I know.
Hitting the notes is one thing. Extracting the audio file and putting it into your song, there's still a lot of debate. Well, I'm not against it in small doses, just like the industry. 7 to 12 seconds, I think, is the norm there. Anything more?
No 13 seconds. Not for you. But we were talking about music producers and beats before we started a little tangent there, but that's always good.
Oh, yeah, with beat
Let's
block.
go to, the real cure to music producers, beat block.
Yes, and if there are beat makers out there that experiencing this, let me know. I'd like to cover this one a little more in the future.
Music producers, someone within my community named Pogo Beats gave us something of a monumental gem, and I've been repeating it ever since he actually shared it with us. Yes, I am learning stuff from my own community at CurtisKingTV.com. The artist versus the scientist. Let's talk about this theory and how it applies to all rappers and music producers. Let's talk about it. Rappers and music producers, as I said in the intro of this video, there is a member, a part of the Curtis King TV community, which you could join today if you like, and you could actually be interacting with great and ingenious people like this. Pogo Beats said to us, he said, Curtis, is one thing that I understand in my journey from the people that I have listened to and philosophers and people that have all pointed to the central theme of when we are creating art, when we're making a beat, when we're writing a song, we are having this sort of exchange between a scientist and an artist. Now that may sound kind of crazy because most of us kind of classify ourselves only as artists, right? We think of our music as an art form. Or making beats on FL Studio, that is an art. But when you start to think about some of the technical makings or aspects of the actual art, you start to realize they require a different brain. Put your glasses on, you have to become a scientist when it comes to mixing and mastering. Sometimes trying to figure out what is the proper VST that is not going to crash and burn your CPU, that is a technical or scientific approach. Now, this video is not to say that you need to get the scientists out of your life or that one of them's bad and the other one's good. This is to help you to understand what is going on as you are creating your art. If you get a greater understanding of this, you can understand what is stepping inside of your way, because I believe a lot of us associate writer's block or beat block with really being out of touch with who is actually leading the charge on this particular art form. Think about this, producers. How many of you have been sitting down in front of FL Studio and you are sitting there and you are going through every kick and snare that you've ever even set your eyes on, all up in your drum categories, and you're looking and you're like, no, it just doesn't have enough punch. No, that's not quite that's not what I'm looking for, and you really start to obsess over these really minimal details, these very technical details. No, I need to mix the snare at the proper parametric equalizer before I actually start to put it down. You do all this when really, if you were to think of your art as a kitchen, there's certain times that the artist needs to be in the kitchen and the scientist needs to be in the kitchen. Now, if you're sitting up here and you're just making a beat and within the first 10 minutes, you're already jumping to the plug-in chains and you're already trying to like perfect things instead of having fun as we're supposed to be having, instead of sitting there with the art and letting the artist run free. I think of the artist as a child. The child is not worried about all the rules. The child is not even worried about breaking the rules. The child is sitting there having so much fun that if things are too loud, if things are out of place, they were supposed to be that way and they'll make a reason for it. A child will tell you, Mom, I saw a unicorn on top of the roof and it was smiling at me. And she'll say, well, how is that possible that the unicorn got up there? Well, it had wings, Mama. Well, how did it get wings? Because it went to the wing store and then it had wings on its back and it was like $4.55 for that. And they was like, thank you. And okay, then what did it do after that? It smiled at me and then it jumped to the other roof. How did it do that? Because it had a jetpack also. So this is what I'm saying. A child does not think about the reasoning in a situation. That is so much the energy of the artist. And so many of us lose the opportunity to allow that artist to just be, to just try things, to just fail, to sacrifice the opportunity, to sacrifice the chance that you may look stupid, to sacrifice the chance that you may look inexperienced. I've dealt with that, especially making beats on live, right? I know that every single producer in there has their philosophy on which way is the way to actually do everything, and then they hate everything that I'm doing, and I'm like, bro, do you even... First of all, let's listen to your beats. Let's pull your beats up, you head ass, because I know your beats is terrible. If you got all that time for all that criticism, that's why you telling me what to do, because you ain't got no business to be tending to. And so that's first of all. But second of all, you start to think, I say, man, it's frustrating because it's like if you trust the work, the end product, and you listen to it and you're like, yo, that's fire, let it play out. But some of you are so impatient with my stuff, I can't imagine how impatient you are with your own stuff. But here's the thing. There are times that the artist needs to just be free. And then it is times that the scientist needs to come in, let the artist kind of shift off to the side of the room, go and sit down now, and let me give structure to what's going on here. And when that happens, They all play in perfect harmony, but the thing is, there's a necessity for both. There's a necessity for the scientists, especially as you're mixing and mastering, because you do need to understand what compressors do. You do need to understand what a sidechain compression is. You do need to understand the purpose of EQing, the purpose of getting rid of some of the sounds that are not actually listenable or we can actually hear within the frequencies. You need to know some of these scientific approaches and technical aspects of your music, because this makes you a more balanced beast. And at the end of the day, you got to be able to take care of all that, right? Some people are natural artists and that is what their go-to is, but they need that scientist to come in the kitchen sometimes. What they don't need is for that scientist to dominate the entire beat, because that's when a lot of you start making beats that are hella quantized, sound like they got no soul, and sound like you just push random demo and then put a demo in and it's like, yeah, this the beat I made. Boom, ticka, boom, 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 ticka, boom, 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 ticka, boom, boom, boom. That might even got too much damn soul for the kind of beats you make when you let the scientists run things. Stop letting the scientists run things when it's not their role to run things. So when you're making beats, next time that you feel like you're in a beat block or you're stuck, start asking yourself, am I being too technical? Am I allowing the scientist to make decisions that the artist, the child, should be going in here running free? Do you even give yourself an opportunity for that? How do you treat that artist side, that childlike? How do you treat that? Do you treat it? Are you abusive? Are you like, no, you can't do, you're having too much fun, fam? Do you do that to the childlike? Because if so, there's probably a lot of other things you got to get in order before you even sit down to make that beat. Because you got a responsibility. You got to understand that whatever poison is in you, if you have poison that exists within you, we all got a little bit of poison of some kind, you are filtering that into the music. And if it's meant to help people, it won't connect with the people you're trying to help because they don't want the poison. As soon as they hear it, they're like, nope. That damn chord is muddy, ugh, right? But you gotta be the one that is aware of the flow that goes from you within the music. And you have to understand that when you sit there in front of the music, a lot of times it's the things that are going on inside of our brain that make for a very awkward relationship and a non-harmonious relationship between the scientist and the artist. Which one are you, and are you utilizing both to the best of their capabilities? You should ask yourself that. Thank you for watching today's video. Once again, this is Curtis King TV. Please subscribe to the channel. If you're not subscribed, please hit the notification bell so you can know when all this stuff is gonna happen. I don't know when YouTube decided to delete this, but when they do, they do. Either way, we're gonna have a party until they do. For those of you that are interested in getting more in-depth information, talking to me on a daily basis, because here it may feel like I'm here pretty consistently, but I'm spending the majority of my time in CurtisKingTV.com, in which I'm engaging in daily workshops Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and doing one-on-one consultations on Friday that are booked in advance by the members within the membership side. I'm also providing more long-winded, long-form content specifically geared towards your questions. Remember when Curtis King had to Ask Curtis King or Ask Curspiration, whatever I called it? That is now on the membership side. You got specific questions for me, I'll make video content just like this for you, only within the private community. So you ain't got to worry about everybody knowing what your question is. I ain't gonna do that to you, but that's what I'm saying. Come to the community, we'll treat you right. We got a lot of people in here that just want to build and create great relationships, worldwide community of rappers and music producers. So join up. Curtis King TV is the place to go. In this life, you will not be full of life until you decide to live life to its fullest. Once again, it's the leading voice of the online rapper and music producer community. Stop telling me to slow down when I'm talking. Shut up. Don't at me. Peace. Look up, Nazi. Say cheese.
Don't at him.
Don't at me. Don't at me, bro. No, excellent advice there, and good advice for life in general, as well as beat making. So,
and I told you it was going to get scientifical.
Yeah.
He got
the scientist and the creative. Yeah,
and all
that
you artists
reminded me.
All you artists are children.
Yes, and me, I'm a very big child. I am, for sure. Very large, but very much a child, and that's one of the things that. With having a career in troubleshooting and finding creative out of the box solutions, that really is balancing those two. Like mostly the scientist at work, but you got to let the kid jump in there and go, well, maybe it's that. And you go, and then the scientist goes, no, it's not that, but maybe we should go look anyway. And so we go look anyway. Yep, sure enough, it was that, because the kid had good intuition about what was going on.
I feel like a parent trapped in a child's body, or vice versa, depending on which role I'm playing. If I'm the artist, I hear the parent in my head, and if I'm the parent, I feel the child in my heart.
I feel like the classical piano instruction when I was a kid was mostly about, like, it was all scientist and no creative. Like, we were not making music. It wasn't playing something in A minor or play this. It was always play these notes as they are on the paper to make that song sound like this. And this is what it sounds like, right? So it was to reproduce it as perfectly as you could. And, you're supposed to put your own nuance on a song when you're playing it, but, it's still supposed to be identifiable as the song. So it's still have to play it right, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So to me, there was very much not the creative side. The kid wasn't allowed to play, but it was all about the scientist. Whereas it seems now, just, approaching it from, the bass and from the guitar and just from all around, it's more like, okay, now I am free to just sit down. I feel like I could just sit down at any instrument of any kind. And if I can make it make noise, I can figure out how to make a melody that sounds cool on something, anything. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
just because you can follow your.
The approach he was looking at it, like, as a beat maker who's, say, playing in Fruity Loops to make beats for, like, the artists, and the writer's block that you can get into depending on the artist that you have to work with and what you're trying to produce. Like, a lot of his mentality was actually coming from the producer side, and that's kind of what beat makers are when it comes to the artist that's going to come in and do something on top of it.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
It's a different musical scenario for writer's block than, like, say, the lyricist and the ones we've looked at so far. That's why I thought it was important to include that in, because it's a different kind of writer's block.
Absolutely. But we're actually going to go back to lyrics for another one next.
Well, yes, the lyrics, they're the most common place where, like, musical writer's block tends to happen. I have a tougher time with lyrics than I do with getting in the groove, finding a melody.
Yep. And that's the thing is, we've talked about a number of different ways, and we're going to talk about others in a minute, of, being able to find a subject, whether it's a subject or a topic or an idea. That's the problem. But then when you get to the actual writing of it, yeah, you've got, whether it's the lyrics or whether it's the songwriting, there's always something going on there. But in this case, we're focused on the lyrics because that is what needs to get covered.
Yeah, and the tricky thing with lyrics is you also got to be considering melody. It's one thing to have the words, but if the melody and the beat, what you're trying to do with them, doesn't fit with the way you're putting your words together, you've got to be ready to rearrange things to make them mesh.
Yeah, the timing or the meter, has to definitely match. Got to get it to work out there, or you have to change your words around.
If it doesn't, it will sound forced, and I can't tell you how many originals I hear on BandLab where I feel like they are forcing those words into that music, and it shouldn't be like that. You either got to adjust the music. If you're really determined to say those words that way, you've got to have musicians willing to adjust to the words, or the easier route is to adjust the words so that they fit in that music.
Yeah, for me, a band like the Grateful Dead is a band I always love. Listening to the lyrics and then just thinking about it, and thinking about the way that so much of it is describing certain things rather than it being an actual instead of just saying, oh, here there's a table and there's something on the table. It's talking about something about the thing that's on the table or what it evokes as a feeling to you, that kind of thing. Very not very descriptive writing, but writing that evokes emotion as opposed to just describing something.
Well, it takes that simplified approach we've seen suggested, in some of these, and the beauty with, like, music from the dead, the music speaks for itself. It's not hard to, like, throw in a couple of descriptive words when you've got a real nice simple groove that you can follow for minutes.
Yeah, I definitely love some Dead for sure.
Yeah. Well, now we're going into the Roan Zone. At the Roan Zone, finally putting my music theory degree to use. All right. When we have music theory nights, we will be back, Roan.
Absolutely.
Oh, and look at some of these videos, because he's Claire de Lune.
Yep.
Talking about Mozart. Oh, you know I'm coming back here. Hans Zimmer's great. Sold on
Sold.
this channel.
Yep, you got him hooked.
Well,
The
I'm
Bone
glad.
Zone.
I'm glad he had something that fit the topic, because this is a freshie that I know I'll be back to.
All right, let's check it out then. How to write lyrics, Part 1, Writer's Block.
Trying to write lyrics, you're staring at a blank piece of paper and you just can't seem to get the words out. So you scour the net looking for advice and tips, and you get stuff like, go get inspiration, or write every day, practice writing, or write about what you know. The problem with these tips is they don't really get to the root of the problem, do they? In this video, we're going to try to provide you with a solution, one with actionable steps that you can take to jumpstart the lyric writing process. So what is this magic technique? Well, to explain it in a nutshell, instead of trying to create lyrics from the ground up and from scratch, we're going to fish those words out using the help of the music. Basically, it involves you humming along to the music. By humming along, you create nonsense vowels that you eventually turn into words. And from those words, you create coherent phrases and sentences. And then you combine those phrases and sentences into choruses, verses, and eventually you end up with the full lyrics. So we're gonna go try this method out now. And if you're new to this method, it'll seem a little weird, a little strange, but it seems to work for a lot of big name artists out there.
That's it.
And I pray to the prayed and I'm falling away. No, I need.
I'll just start sort of vamping, in Ellen Rigby's case, just started vamping on an E minor chord. And then I start singing over it. Ba-da-doo-da, ba-da-doo-da. And you can almost hear words in what you're blocking out. So I kind of work backwards. I just get a phrase that like comes out of nowhere.
So in the last video, I was showing you the song I was working on, and I came up with the chord progression and the melody by humming it out. And I'll play that for you now. And so I've already kind of worked this out earlier, but I'll give you a sped up version of how I use this method to come up with the lyrics. So I started out singing the nonsense vowels. So at the end of those phrases, I hear the words eh and So then I played around with those vowels. Well, what word has those vowels? Eh and letter. So I came up with the first word, letter. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, what rhymes with letter? And I ended up choosing the word better. So from the word letter, the thought of love letters came to mind. And from the word better, the concept of someone being better. And so by combining those two words, the idea of a breakup story emerged. And so from there, I looked for more words, and I heard three other vowels. I heard an A, an O, and an I. I heard the word take for the A vowel, and the word clothes for the O, and then the word time at the very end of the phrase. Take your clothes and take your letters, leave me here with someone better. All right, that works. Take your clothes and take your letters, leave me here for someone better. Time, another time. Save your words for another time. Boom! We have the first half of the chorus. And after a couple minutes, we get a full chorus. Take your clothes and take your letters, leave me here for someone better. Save your words for another time. And I'll hit the coast with no vendetta. Leave me here so I can get there to a place back when you were mine. Okay, great. So you have a chorus, and then from there you would just keep on going and try to apply that same method to the verses, the pre-choruses, and the bridge. All right, so we've seen how this technique solves the initial problem of writer's block, but the benefits don't stop there. On his website, Cliff Goldmacher refers to the Hippocratic Oath of lyric writing. Do no harm. And in order to do no harm, you gotta avoid 4 main things. Lyrics that sound unnatural, lyrics that are too wordy, lyrics that sound forced, and lyrics with bad prosody. Let's go over these one by one. Alright, lyrics that sound unnatural. For some of you out there, it may actually be pretty easy to get the words out. You write out the lyrics, they're grammatically correct, everything makes sense, clear and concise, it's poetic and beautiful, and yet when you put it to the music, it just sounds off. The problem with creating words first is that we don't know how they'll sound when sung later. But by starting with the end goal in mind, by singing out the words and finding them that way, the words write themselves in a way that sounds natural. Okay, lyrics that are too wordy. This is also a common result of writing lyrics and melody separately. You come up with very detailed lyrics that explains everything you want to say, but then end up having to cram the words into the melody later on. Wordiness on its own isn't necessarily a problem. I mean, just check out Ed Sheeran's work. He's got a very rhythmic and wordy verse on Shape of You, and rap-like verses on Galway Girl. But he does it purposefully and with intent. Alright, lyrics that sound too perfect. Starting out, we're often told that songs are poetry. The problem with that is, we often start out writing songs that end up sounding a little too sing-songy. You end up with a song that sounds a little forced, maybe even a bit corny, like nursery rhymes put to music. The fact is, songs are not poetry because songs have to be sung. And because they have to be sung, they have to sound natural. And a poetic approach to writing lyrics can often prevent that from happening. Number 4, lyrics with bad prosody. This is just a fancy way of describing the pattern of accents within a phrase, a sentence, in our case, lyrics. And you guessed it, you can have good prosody and bad prosody. As with the other problems we already talked about, singing along to the music from the beginning automatically prevents that from happening. After all, you wouldn't say, I went to the store to get some milk. Similarly, you wouldn't naturally hum out words on the wrong accent. You also want to avoid accessing the wrong syllables within a word. Singing letter as letter would sound very strange indeed. And this is why I avoided using the word deter in my lyrics, because the music accents the first vowel, and the word deter accents the second syllable. So I challenge you to try out this method today to help you get through that writer's block. It's 2 main advantages, being that it helps jumpstart the lyric writing process and helps prevent you from making common lyric writing mistakes. If you have any other tips to add, please let me know in the comments below, or let me know whether you like this technique or whether you prefer to write lyrics first, and let me know why. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. I already have a part 2 to this video where we'll look at all the other challenges when it comes to songwriting, such as how do you get around difficult to rhyme words and other helpful tips. So please stay tuned and I'll see you on the next one.
Oh, loving this new channel.
Try to rhyme with orange.
Well, the prosody in itself, I was wondering, I was like, what the hell is prosody? And it's these pretzels are making me thirsty.
I was thinking more, it's you want fries with that? You want fries with that?
Well,
you want fries with that?
Want fries with that? Is very different.
You want fries with that. Very different meanings.
But that really cleared up, like, you know, I love when I learn a new word and for something that I always knew, but I didn't know what to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what
but
I was.
You were familiar with the phenomenon.
Well, and that's what I was talking about when, like, I was saying to avoid forcing words in where they don't. And sometimes it's not that you're forcing the words in, your prosody is not proper.
It's bad. And that was a great way to avoid that, by starting from the sounds themselves. And again, as a writing hack right there, just by starting with the ahs and oohs and just, you know, letting something come out and then seeing which ones kind of latch on and feel like then a word, which then builds into an actual story arc just by starting into it like that. I really like that approach.
And recognizing problematic words, like what he mentioned about deter, and that there is a certain part of that word that is the emphasis syllable, and as you're trying to cram this word into melody, know which words have that, because you put it on the wrong note and deter.
Now you had letter, and I was thinking later, is another one that could also get that same kind of kind of sound to it, but it could be too similar to letter also. So that's where you also run into things where it's like, okay, that's one that's it's good to have as an option, but it's probably too close to one that we're already using heavily or working with heavily in the song.
Well, it's why it's good to start the way he did, where you kind of hum it out, you just feel it out with sound, and then figure out where the words fit into those sounds.
Yeah, and a perfect example for that would be China Cat Sunflower by the Grateful Dead, which the words are complete nonsense. I mean, if you've never looked at them, like actually look at the lyrics while listening to the song, and you'll hear that, yep, everything that's on that page is in there. But now take an instrumental version of that song and give it to somebody and have just that page and say, okay, now sing that in this song. And like, there was no way like they would be able to fit things where they all have to go because they don't understand how the timing comes out.
And once in a while, you don't need words. You can just, hey, la-dee-la-dee-do. And that's good enough.
Good enough, exactly. Well done. I like that, though. Different ways to approach the songwriting from starting from the sounds and fitting them in for the timing and the meter and the timing. Very cool.
Those were some pro level tips. The Roan Zone, respect.
Well done.
I'm going to be checking him back just on that Claire de Lune.
And we'll definitely hit that another time. Now we're up for a rap song.
Well, yeah, they can't ignore the hip hop and the writer's block there. I mean, the beat making kind of dabbles into it a little bit because a lot of the beat making is for hip hop. But, when you're getting into the lyrics and lyricism, rap's got its own kind of creative block.
Oh yeah, and when it comes to the flow, when it comes to just getting stuff to actually come out and fit and sound right and have the right content, and getting all those aspects to come together is really not as easy as it looks.
Yeah, well, to get him to fit in there, you got to have extra special bounce. When I'm listening to the hip hop, the bounce that the rapper has a lot to do with whether I like them or not. Like, you can have someone saying the most important kind of words, but if they're not flowing it and bouncing it properly, it's like, oh, that great message is just clashing with that beat.
Yeah. And that's something that they could totally overcome with just by, kind of representing a different voice or giving it a different voice, by, putting more emphasis in different places or what have you.
Yeah. Take some tips from that last video there, because that will help get your bounce improved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And now we're at how to rap official. And I mean, the channel says it all.
How to rap. Absolutely.
Yeah, the first rap coaching company created in 2014.
Nice. And I like the racing flag background there with the green and the black. It's cool.
I know. I want that for my wall.
I like it. Let's see how to write a rap song without getting writer's block. The truth.
What's up, world? It's your boy Drew Marcy here for How to Rap, and in this video we're going to teach you how to write a rap song in full without getting writer's block. If you've ever wanted to write a rap song without getting frustrated in your process, without slowing down or giving it up at all, this is going to be the video for you. Now, before we begin, of course, be sure to subscribe to this channel with notifications, because we give weekly tips on how to rap with a visual component. And if writer's block is your biggest issue, assist you in learning how to write a rap song, be sure to check out our Writer's Block course, where we'll teach you exactly how to break down writer's block, storytelling, all of that. It's the first link in the video description box below. Now, the first and most important lesson that you're gonna learn here when learning how to write a rap song without writer's block is that you don't need to write the song in the order that it's heard. You don't need to write the song in the order that people will listen to it in the finished product. In fact, many of the greatest songs and songwriters of all time in other genres, more than just rap, the Beatles, Michael Jackson, and so on, would come up with a chorus or a bridge and then add it to other verses later on. Another way to think about this is the way that they make movies, right? So you see the movie in a particular order, but that doesn't mean that it was shot, recorded, produced in that order. They might shoot two scenes that end up in two different sides of the movie in the same location for continuity's sake or to keep production costs down. Or in your case as a songwriter, you can write different sections of the song in a different order to keep your writer's block down and to make it easier to create the song in full. When I was first learning how to rap, I did not know this. I would write the song in the order it was heard. So no matter what the beat was, no matter what the structure of the beat was, I would first write the first verse, then I write the chorus, then I write the second verse, then I write chorus, etc. While this is good when you're first starting, because it'll help you to learn the structure of beats that you commonly hear and force you to create within a common song structure, depending on the production. As you get more experience, as you write more and more, you'll notice that inspiration for certain sections of the song will strike you at different points depending on the beat, and you want to allow for that so that you avoid the chances of getting writer's block, getting frustrated, or feeling like you have to force anything creatively. To use a common example, let's say you hear a beat that is programmed in a way that has the first verse begin the song and the chorus comes second. As you are listening to the beat, you start humming a melody that you believe sounds like an amazing chorus. Now, if you're following the linear in order format of writing, you might think, well, that would be a great melody, that would be a great chorus, but I can only write the rap song in order as it's heard, so I have to force that chorus melody into the verse. So in this example, what you're doing is using that great melody that you would use as a chorus and forcing it into the verse. Once you've written that verse, you get to the chorus and you begin to experience writer's block because you've wasted the melody you would use for that great chorus on the verse. And this is where you start to get frustrated as a writer, when you don't write it in any order that you feel. What I would suggest is practice writing it in whatever order you feel most inspired. So if you find that chorus feeling first and you got a great chorus, just write that chorus, get it down, and then worry about the verses. This is a common question in rap, of course. Should I write the verse first? Should I write the chorus first? Like, what is the order that I write in? And I always suggest, especially if you're experiencing writer's block, to write it in whatever is easiest, right? Your verse, if you just start thinking of dope bars, write your chorus, even consider writing your bridge if you think, oh, this sounds like a good third section. Now, part of the reason you end up getting writer's block is because you feel like there's a fixed way in which you're supposed to construct the song or order the song. So if you think the song is supposed to have a bridge, you're gonna force yourself to write a bridge just because you think that is the structure that you must have. This is absolutely not the case, especially when it is on a beat that you're hearing. There's no rules that the producer of the beat is telling you to do. Usually they're selling you the beat, and you can construct any sections in any part that you want to make it easier for yourself and not experience that writer's block. One of the easiest ways to do this is listen to the beat and determine which sections of the song you think the producer who made the beat wants you to perform in. So for example, you might hear a beat for the first time and practice identifying whether it starts with a chorus or a verse. The easiest way to know whether it's a chorus is if all the instruments present in the beat are playing at once and it repeats. This is usually an indication that the producer wants this to be the chorus because it is the most uplifting, engaging part of the song, as indicated by the large number of instruments. And so the producer has put all of the instruments and those parts in the beat there. Additionally, 75% or even more percentage of songs have a chorus section repeat at least twice. So if you combine all the instruments are playing, all of everything you hear in the beat is present and it repeats twice, that's usually an indication that is where the chorus is. Furthermore, verses tend to be longer than choruses. Choruses are usually something like 8 bars, where verses are at least 12, 16 often. section. So if a section of the beat is a little bit longer and doesn't have all those instruments we just talked about, it usually is an indication that it is a verse. So because most songs have at least a bare bones verse chorus structure, you can identify those two separate sections using what we just discussed, and now you kind of know the general structure of the song. Now there are less common sections of the song you might consider, such as a bridge that we just talked about or an intro. We won't discuss them super in depth in this article, but if you're interested in learning about that, consider checking out our 4-hour songwriting masterclass on this subject by visiting the video description box below. The last secret trick I'd like to give you in this video is the write record method of writing your rap songs to avoid writer's block. As we've already covered, you don't need to write the song in the order that it will be heard in, and to take this a step further, you also don't have to record the song in the order that it will be heard in. One great way to cut down on writer's block when you're learning how to write a rap song is record the sections automatically as they're written. The minute you finish writing that chorus or writing that verse, just record that smaller section to get it down. Then after it's recorded along with the beat, you can look back at the file and you'll see that something like half the song or at least a third of the song is already completed, and that'll help trick your brain to think, okay, I'm almost already done. So as an example, let's say you hear a beat and you immediately think of a dope chorus. I would suggest that you write that chorus down in full and then record that chorus. Now you are ready to write the verse, but because you already have a chorus recorded and likely repeated twice, you only have one half or even 1/3 of the song left to do. So doing this no longer will the track feel like a huge mountain to climb because you've recorded and can see it in the file. You've already recorded some of the song and it'll feel just less overwhelming, which usually leads to writer's block. On the flip side, you may have trouble thinking of a chorus, which is a common issue with rappers and writer's block. So why not just write verse 1, record it, ignore the chorus part, then write verse 2, record it, and then as you listen back to the track, all you have to do is write a chorus. So again, the write record method can really help you to trick your brain and trick the feelings of being overwhelmed in order to increase the likelihood that it will be easy as you're learning how to write a rap song with never having writer's block. So just remember, you don't have to write the song in the order that it's listened to. You can write whatever section comes most naturally first. You can use the beat's original structure to help guide your section, and you can consider recording each section the minute it's written to feel like the song is getting done faster. Now, I want to ask you a question for the comments before we go. How often right now do you experience writer's block when you're writing rap songs? Is it half of the time? Is it most of the time? Is it not much at all? Let us know in the comments. We're a community here at How to Rap. Be sure to check out those courses all about writer's block and song structure in the video description box below, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.
Ooh, a nice compliment to the beat block video.
Yep, exactly. They fit together like Legos.
Well, yes, this is like the other side of it, where like you've got this beat that this beat maker made, and you don't necessarily have to do it at the same arrangement that they did. Beat makers tend to arrange one way, but if you're writing your message, you want to be able to chop that beat up in order to arrange it the way that you, as an artist.
I've actually had a song where I started writing what I thought was the verse, and I had the verse going, and then I had a chorus started, and I had the two going, but for some reason it didn't feel right, and it turned out that just in realizing what he's talking about there with the structure being backwards like that, it was backwards, where I realized at the time that the verse needed to be the chorus and the chorus needed to be the verse. And once I made that switch, it was easier because now I could fit the structure wise what I needed in the verses, and the chorus was already like, it already wrote itself essentially because it was already done. But I had thought that was just, part of a verse, and I was trying to match other things to it, but it worked so much better as a chorus to just repeat that section instead.
And you could still put it where a verse is traditionally and take an arrangement approach where you come in with the chorus. Because every once in a while, you'll get a song like that where like they come in with the chorus right off the bat.
Exactly. And that's a great option, to change things up again. If you're in a writing style, that's a good way to start. Start with the wrong section.
To mention
wrong section.
To mention one from tonight's videos, Fat Bottom Girls. Like Queen did that a couple of different times where like they started with the bang and then went to the verse.
Yeah. It's allowed, you can do it.
Yeah.
No one's going to stop you.
Yeah.
It's a way to make the song. Does it work for the material you're trying to put together is the question.
And through all these suggestions, I like that he mentioned the bridge conundrum. And I've fallen into these ruts where like I've tried to write the song sequentially, like, okay, I got to get the intro, I got to get the first verse. And those are where I have half songs still, because trying to do it the hard way. And his suggestion of just getting the parts that you got and getting them in there and recording them so that you can put them in an arrangement track. Since Cakewalk added the arrangement track a couple of years ago, I'm trying to force myself now to use it, where I set up the verse part and I set up the chorus part, and then it can actually start to Lego block them.
Yeah, and that's convenient and very it's a big time saver once you're to get the entire structure down just by starting with the Lego blocks like that. It makes it so much easier.
I mean, you might spend a little more time on getting the part recorded, but the time that you save once you do have all the parts recorded, you can slap together the song.
And it was like he was saying as well that, it kind of tricks your mind into, hey, I'm almost done. Like now you've got something that's solidly done. When you get the Lego block, you've got this Lego block done. Okay, now one verse is done. And that means that 5 verses are done or whatever. If I wanted to go 5 verses, I could just boom, 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 boom. And now it's just filling in the chorus in the middle.
Hack my mind. I like it.
And don't be afraid of the pre-chorus. As well as the bridge, because that's another way of mixing things.
If you have a good bridge and a good pre-chorus, you're Def Leppard.
There you go.
They were
good example.
They were a genius at doing that. It's like I thought I was going into a chorus. No, wait a minute. This is a pre-chorus or a double chorus, which they also did.
Yeah. That's so sneaky.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, I think we've got time for one more.
At How to Rap Official, all you rappers out there, this is the go-to site for sure.
Yeah.
They are official.
Yep. And some good information there for sure.
Yeah. And now that we've seen how to avoid writer's block and, how to conquer it and overcome it, ideas. And the thing that I think is one of the big causes for writer's block when you're trying to write fresh new songs and what to do, it's the idea process that sometimes makes you not motivated.
Yep. And that's why this is great, having just 50 ideas. Bam.
Oh, she's got more. Like I said, there was a couple of the one on writing about yourself is so good that you guys should go check out the channel. It's at Joy Frost. She's got all her music on there, which I'd like to check out later. And her ideas between this video and the one she made after about just writing about yourself, you should be popping with ideas after that, because you can pluck from any one of these and write from a different perspective, like Glenn said.
Yeah. Write as yourself, or write as somebody else, or write as a character in a book that you liked or whatever. Yeah. Taking that one step further, you can write as anyone just by jumping in.
And I can write about love and sex all night.
There you go.
Well, they are
so let's see about overcoming.
They are the first two.
Yeah. And what was it? I think it was Jimmy Buffett had a box set at one point. It was like boats. Like the title of the box set was like 4 different things, but it was like the 4 things that are the top subjects of all of his songs, right? So it's got to be like drinking and boats and this and that. Like all these different themes. But it's like,
don't forget cheeseburgers.
Cheeseburgers, yes, cheeseburgers, always important. All right, so let's see about overcoming writer's block. 50 song ideas.
Oh. Hi, my name is Joy Frost. I am a singer, songwriter, and audio engineer, and in today's episode, I am going to give you 50 things to write a song about. So, writer's block can happen to the best of us. Sometimes our idea tree is just kind of shriveled up and not bearing any fruit, and so we need to break through that. And so sometimes I struggle with this as well. Sometimes I have a few dry months, but lately I've broken through that, and so I want to share 50 of the common songwriting themes that I have found that can help you get writing again. So, of course, the most obvious two things you can write about is love and sex. These are the predominant topics in most of the music that we hear today. But you are not limited to only writing about these things. You can also write about platonic relationships, or you can write about how frustrated you are that you don't have any real friends. You can write a song about your mom, about your dad, your siblings, or your child if you're a parent. And depending on the relationship that you had with them, that can be either a positive, happy song or a sad song. Writing about family in general is always a possibility, or you can even write about your enemies. You can write about money. This is also a very, very dominant theme in the music that we hear today. You can write about what it feels like to be rich. There's so many songs about ballin' and just making it rain, blah, blah, blah. Or what it feels like to be poor, or wishing you were rich. Like, if I was a rich man, da 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 da. Next, and this might even be the most important thing to write about, is fun. Because a lot of times people are listening to music to enjoy themselves, to change their mood, to shift their internal paradigm. I don't know, to sound like a nerd. You can also write about the spectrum of emotions. You can write about happiness, you can write about sadness, you can write about fear, you can write anger, disgust, jealousy, loneliness. There's so many things that we feel, and everything is worthy of a song. Satisfaction or dissatisfaction, or you can write about nature and the beautiful things that we have on our planet, or about time, whether that's the passage of time or how you perceive the passage of time, something in the past, the present, the future. And my favorite word to put after time is traveling. So you can write about traveling, seeing the world. You could write an anthem for your hometown or your home state. We've got Sweet Home Alabama, New York, New York, and not every state has an awesome anthem yet. So if you're from a state that is missing a really cool song, why not write one about where you're from? You could write a song about life, what it feels like to be alive, how it feels to be young, or what it feels like to get older. Are you enjoying your life, and why? Or are you not enjoying your life? And are you changing your life? Or did you learn an important life lesson that you want to share? You could write about honesty or dishonesty. What about rebelling? Good old-fashioned rebellion. Whether you're rebelling against your parents or the man, somebody's expectations of who you should be. There's so many options here. Rebellion is fun. Oh, it's kind of bright now. Okay, lowering the ISO. So you can also write about partying and dancing if that's something that you enjoy. This has been oh, come on, the sun keeps changing, you're killing me. That'll do. So, where was I? Oh yeah, you can write a song about partying and dancing. This is a very time-tested topic, one that has done well over and over and over. I think it's also important to only write about things that you personally feel connected to. So if you don't enjoy partying or dancing, don't write something that's not true to who you are. So you'll not really see me writing a song about partying because it's not something that I enjoy doing. I prefer small groups or just staying home and snuggling, so that's what I like to write about instead. So write about that. Ooh, of course, no songwriting topic list could be complete without writing about drinking or drugs. That's been part of rock and roll since the beginning of time. Oh, this is my favorite one. Number 38, butts. I like big butts and I cannot lie. You left me this game tonight. Anaconda, Bootylicious, that honka-donk, badonkadonk. There's so many songs about butts, because butts are awesome. So write one about yours. Ah, the sun keeps changing. You can also write a song about technology, whether you think that's good or bad. Or you can write about God and religion. There's, of course, hymns and worship music. Or there's songs about losing your religion and letting go of your faith. So there's a lot of options here, and whatever resonates with your spirit is what you can write about. Number 41, school, education, teachers, students. We Don't Need No Education by Pink Floyd, or Hot for Teacher. Oh man, it's getting too dark again. Up. So write about school, things that you learned, things that you wish you learned in school, or what it's like to be a kid in school. Like, I wish I could be like the cool kids. There's a lot of options here because it's an experience that all of us share. Who could forget writing songs about critiquing society? If you are displeased with the world and the way it is, then you can express that through your music. One of the most powerful songs in history was about critiquing society, and that is Imagine by John Lennon. There's so much powerful, raw emotion that can go into expressing your deepest wish for the world that we live in. Along the same vein, you can write about politics, what you believe, or you can also speak out against tragic events and the ugliness in the world. For example, Zombie by the Cranberries. Rest in peace, Dolores O'Riordan. She wrote that song speaking out against a bombing when a mother lost her child in a terrorist attack. And sadly, these things are happening so much in the world. And if you want to cast a spotlight on that ugliness and say something against it, you can do that with your music. We're almost to the end. So, the next thing, I know I'm like all cheery, you can also write about death and dying. Depending on the genre that you're writing in, that can really influence the direction that you take this. Whether if you're writing a more dark song about how you feel like you're dead inside, or you could write a song about someone that you loved that died. Or for example, Live Like You Were Dying by Tim McGraw is about a man who's diagnosed with cancer and then he finally learns how to live his life to the fullest. That song just breaks my heart every time I hear it. Or, what was it? Kenny Chesney, Who You'd Be Today. If you have not listened to that song, get a box of tissues and go listen to it because it is just so beautifully, beautifully sad. We got history, we got health, whether that's your physical health or your mental health. You can write about any sicknesses that you deal with, or if you have depression or anxiety or struggle with anything like that. Three more. So the next one, you can write about your goals and your aspirations and your dreams and all these things that you want to become and the things you want to have manifest themselves in your life. That's maybe part of the energy that you can put out into the world to help make it come true for you as well. And who can forget songs about empowerment? Too dark. Now it's too dark. Up. Girl power. Songs that make your listener feel like they can do or be anything or that they're good enough. Beautiful by Christina Aguilera. Firework by Katy Perry. There's so many wonderful songs, and these are really important. If somebody listens to it, it can make a real difference in their life. I mean, I'm sure you've listened to a song that made you feel like everything was going to be okay in a time when everything was just crumbling around you. Music is so important. It's a lifeline. So if you want to create something powerful and important to help somebody, you can write a song like that. And last but not least, you can write a song about yourself. Of course, that is limitless, and I can make another video about all the different ways you can write a song from your personal experience. But of course, you are an expert on you, who you are, what you've been through, and you can write your story through your music. So I hope this list of 50 things to write a song about has helped inspire you and give you some ideas to get you back writing. Writer's block is no fun, but if you just work hard, power through, you can overcome it. That's really the case with anything. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit like, and come listen to any of my original music as well. I release new original songs every Sunday on this channel. And just thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.
Oh, you see why I had to get that one in here?
Oh yeah, I knew I was going to like some of those suggestions for sure.
Well, it's a lot of them you can relate to, and she did make another video for that 50th one. It's fantastic. It gives a whole bunch of personal ideas that, like, I want to go. I think a great exercise for any artist would be to go through all those different suggestions she did and find a song that you feel did that. So you get an example, like she did her homework.
Oh yeah. And there's others that aren't on the list, but I mean, no list can be complete with everything, but there's definitely a lot of ground covered by everything there. And if you can't come up with something to write about after watching something like that, you got a problem.
That should help with the writer's block. And in the 20s, she did the emotional spectrum. And when you're doing any of those other suggestions, the emotional spectrum is something that you can utilize with the topic. So different perspective, looking at it from a sad perspective, looking at it from a happy perspective can change the song.
To me, Jimi Hendrix, "Bold as Love" is the one that, when you start talking about emotions and how the emotions are manifesting as as a person, essentially.
Yeah, there's a couple of Nirvana songs that kind of go through emotional spectrums. He goes from happy to sad, back to gloom.
Going all up and down, bouncing all over the spectrum. But I mean, our time comes to a close so quickly. I mean, this was Joy Frost, right?
Yeah, at Joy Frost.
Joy Frost was that last one.
And she's also got a website, zozo.joyfrost.com.
Nice.
Which I think is
excellent
kisses.
Stuff there. Yep. Hugs and kisses. Very cool. And so that basically covers it for the, getting through the writer's block and all different ways of getting around it and avoiding it and stopping it and different ways to get started on, ways to get ideas out of your head and onto the page.
I feel creatively unclogged.
Exactly.
They got a lot of ideas.
It's a good way to be. And again, if you can't come up with something to write about after all that, then there's something crazy going on.
Yeah.
So we'll figure it out and we'll talk.
You got to try. You got to try something different at that point. That's, I think, theme.
Exactly. That would be the theme. Now, next week is Thanksgiving, is it not?
Yeah. Not sure what we're going to be doing next week, but if there's any suggestions out there, send them my way.
Yeah. We'll have to see what's going on because I might be back late on Thanksgiving, but we shall see.
Well, and I'm whipping up a greatest hits for 2023, so might have that ready by next week.
Sweet. Appreciate that. And thanks everybody else for coming out and joining us, as always, for talking some shh. I.T. with Glenn and Tony. Thanks, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some band lab clips.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume